for RCBOE in Richmond County, Georgia. You drive the buses down here, it will remind you real quick. Use self-control about who you date and who you mate. I mean, you can't get any more real than that. All my years as a school bus driver, by the way, I'm giving the gossips something to scoop about because they enjoy the stuff. Pictures are a little blurry because I zoomed them in, but that was my bus in Colorado. And I was amazed when I got out here. I had an old Bluebird Transit bus, and that bus was immaculate. Older. No mold on the ceiling. My seats weren't destroyed and tore up. Look at that bus. And Denver's shop was one of the best shops of any school district I worked for. I'd write up stuff that evening. By morning, there was a note on the seat, problem resolved. Our mechanics were grade A. They could rebuild engine. They could rebuild a smashed bus. We had a paint shop. We had guys that worked in sheet metal. They even made an air brake chamber system. They rolled in on wheels. They could hook up a pressure tank to it and show us how it works. I was proud to work for Denver Public Schools. They took care of their fleet. And my bus was sparkling. That's from an old video that a clown troll stole all my work. I did some screenshots. And even my chain has been affected in Georgia. Denver, the air's dry, and my chain stayed chrome shiny for years. The first week out here, that thing was tarnished. And I love that bus. I was so proud of that thing. I had a black steel dash. It was clean. Not all this stupid plastic that all these buses have now that breaks. And this is a blast from the past when I was in Hong Kong. That was Edith. She was a beautiful woman. She's sticking her tongue out when I was doing a video on the IFC Mall in Hong Kong. And yeah, it's fascinating. I want to talk about a few things this day. 1989, I was asked by Gene Barber, who's now deceased. Yeah, I was wondering if you want to help out with the bus ministry. And I thought he meant doing what he called canvassing. Saturday morning, he and John Hall, or sometimes Gene, would go to the projects, knock on doors, make a list of people who wanted to ride the bus and go to church. The church had an outreach to the kids. And the kids who rode that bus were African American and Native American. I love driving that old bus. It was 1978 Thomas, 30 passenger, gas engine, Lodestar International. Had vacuum assist brakes. That bus was something else. And I love driving it. 1990, 1989, I had quit a job. I worked at Highland Plasma and I hated it after 7 months and I just quit. I worked with a bunch of liberal women that were nitpicky and everything. And, when I moved to Duluth in 89, I had no idea that not all places are the same. I was conservative. I was a Christian. And I was beginning to find out there's places in America that are hostile to that. People talk about discrimination and racism, but nobody wants to talk about the fact there's sheer hatred towards just me for my beliefs, my skin color, and my faith. That's a real dynamic in some place in the U.S. And I did my job well. I worked hard. But you live in a world when you become a Christian, it doesn't matter if you work hard. The world system hates you. And I was hired by Roger and Julie from the church I attended. They bought a house up in Woodland in Duluth, nice home. And they hired me to do some restoration work, and I had to scrape the paint off oak moldings, pull corkboard off one of the bedroom walls, and texture the walls and do different things. And he was a school teacher for the Duluth school system. Roger was an interesting man. He had his little black mustache and his black hair, and he had a Dodge Aries K-car stick shift. And he'd take me home, and I said, "This car's pretty cool, Roger." And Roger was a simple man. He was married to a beautiful Italian woman. She was a cosmetologist at Glassblock. And after years of that, she developed quite a bit of allergies to all the perfumes and makeup. Julie was stunning. She dressed and carried herself like she was runway material. I'd go use the bathroom, and there's Elle magazines all over the floor. Elle has some of the most beautiful women in it. And Julie and Roger were probably as opposite as you could get. And you'll have to excuse me. I may have picked up a slight cold again. Stuff going around. And there's a few women, not lots, making comments about, "You need to get allergy medicine. I'm tired of that." Well, then don't listen to the channel. Benadryl makes me sleepy. Allergy medication doesn't do a blasted thing. I work in a dusty environment. If it offends you that much, go listen to what you want to listen to. That's a simple fix. But I worked for them for 2 months. He paid me $8 an hour. Very nice couple to me, very kind to me. He gave me a little black and white TV set, and I could watch Duluth's 3 or 4 channels. And one day a young man came and knocked on the door, and I opened it. And a guy by the name of Scott asked if their son was there. I said, "No, I think he's at university today." And I saw the school bus. I said, "Do you drive that?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Wow, I drive a church bus." He said, "Really?" He said, "They're hiring. Go down and apply. We need bus drivers." And I told Roger, and Roger said, "Borrow my car and put in an application." And I did. And I kept calling on that phone and calling and calling. A month went by. In 1990, I was hired. And the guy that trained me, we had stick shift diesels and gas buses and propanes, mostly diesels. And when I was out there on the road, he took me down dirt roads and steep hills. And he said, "Wow, I noticed you just kind of flew through the gears." He said, "You really know how to drive a clutch." I said, "Oh man, I love clutches." Passed my school bus test, and I took it very seriously. Very seriously. Duluth is built like San Francisco, so I learned about downshifting and which way you turn the wheels when you park the bus. Uphill, no curb. Uphill with a curb. Downhill curb. Downhill, no curb. And I looked forward to driving a bus. The first time I got a load of middle school kids, I questioned my sanity, questioned my identity, questioned my very existence. Washington Junior High. I would end up renting an apartment for 2 years right across the street from it after it had closed down. The building was a block big, huge, old school. Duluth had some of the most beautiful schools. Brownstone, stonework, arches, leaded glass windows, hardwood floors, oak banisters. I mean, those buildings made you want to go to school. Now they look like prison cells. Cinder block. It's, yeah. I remember doing lots of sports trips for the bus company, and they had basketball floors still out of oak. And you'd hear the shoes squeak on them when I'd watch the games. And I will say that Minnesota schools had personality and character. Somebody in Forbes, Minnesota, bought an entire school for $3. They closed it down. The community couldn't support it. 2 stories high, stone and brick. He turned it into his art place, lived in it. And Forbes, there's nothing. You drive through, you blink, and you miss it. Some of these old schools in the science room had oak and glass cabinets that sometimes when the schools would shut down for good, they'd auction off all the stuff and people would line up to buy all the well-made stuff that's antique today. I love driving a bus. I enjoyed it, but I was afraid. I had been bullied most of my life, put down, made fun of for my glasses. That didn't end when I drove a bus. And I gradually learned to face my fears. And I remember when I picked up a load of middle schoolers and a white boy get on there and he goes, "Hey, homie." And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Took me years to gain confidence. Years. And I finally did. I swept my bus several times a day. Wiped down the dash. Did it all. I took every trip that was thrown at me. Worked late in the night, got 4 hours of sleep, hit it again the next day. Drove the church bus on Sunday. I was driving school bus and church bus 7 days a week. I was Mr. Yellow. We'd go to Arkansas to go get school buses down in Conway outside Little Rock. Hotter than whiz down there. I remember when I went down there, I did not like the South. I'm like, it's too hot. They got a twangy accent. Not my thing. And I couldn't wait to get and go up over the hill on I-35 over Proctor, and then you come down and you see Lake Superior, and you're like, I'm home. It's cooler here. It's where I belong in the north. And things troubled me back then. I had problem kids, but they were nothing like what I would see down here. Nothing. And I remember driving the school bus. You knew what was hip. You knew the hit songs. You knew the hit movies. The kids, you were right in the genre. What was the big trends. Parents loved me. I'd be out in public. Mom, there's my bus driver. Mom, Mom. Mothers would come up to me, I don't even know. My kid loves riding your bus. My kid comes home saying how you're the bestest bus driver. The holidays, parents would buy me school bus coffee mugs, give me money, give me treats, give me everything. One lady bought me 2 brand new button-up flannel shirts, and if you know anything about Minnesota, that was gold. And I wore them. Warm. I moved out here in 2019, in August, after school had started. Got hired immediately. The safety lady took me out. The training lady took me out. Just said, drive. I'll give you directions. I want to see how you operate the bus. She had 2 trainees behind me. Neither one of them smiled. They looked really hard. And as I'm driving and I stop for the railroad tracks, I hear her say, this guy needs to be driving routes today. Ladies, this guy, what you see him doing, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And I was hired that day. I remember walking across the lot and it was so sweltering hot, sweat dripping off of me. I thought, wow, I really moved to quite the contrary place for me. Years of 25, 30, 38 below, even down as low as 50 below in Hibbing. And walking, and my breath would hang in the air, my glasses would freeze. And pre-tripping my bus was an activity up there. I remember on a Saturday having to take a bus to Duluth, and it was bitter. I had a hard time starting his bus. I had to get the can of ether, open it up. Finally got that thing started, and this big cloud of smoke filling the bus yard. So cold that the smoke just hangs in the air, the exhaust. I'd be given the credit card. I was given the keys to get into the shop, top my own fluids. The mechanic liked me. He said, that guy does pre-trips his bus and takes care of that thing every day. Come out here and the arrogance and the cockiness and the lackadaisical attitude. So many drivers that have no business being behind the wheel of a school bus. They can't drive their car, let alone a bus. Not everybody, but some of the training department out here was horrible. They themselves speeding, backing into stuff. I'm like, they asked me if I wanted to train, and it didn't take me long to realize most of the people out here were failing the pre-trip inspection. I'm like, I'm going to pass. I don't want to train these folks out here. It would not be fun. There is a difference when you move to different communities. There's a difference when you are in a predominantly other ethnic community. And I saw real quickly when I drove the routes, I saw real quickly the dynamics of this town. I saw that I had routes that made the worst route I ever had in Duluth look like a complete nothing burger. The cussing of third graders and flying over the tops of the seats to pound the face of a girl and hold her down on the bottom of a seat cushion and drill her face. And I'm like, what is wrong with these kids down here? tearing up the seats. One day I was driving a bus and the linoleum flooring was cracked and brittle. That was the first thing I noticed. I get into these buses and half the flooring was missing. I had never seen that in my life. I lived in Duluth with the harshest weather. Our buses did not look like what they look like down here. The flooring, and they were breaking off pieces and throwing it around the bus. I'd pre-trip buses, bus after bus, and you grab the seat backs and you go like this. And the thing is rocking like a dang rocking chair. The seat back. Let's see if I can find a better picture. The seat back, where it's anchored to the floor, is loose. Very loose. And I would say, oh, you can't drive this. I'd tell the shop, well, we don't have another spare, you're going to have to drive it. And I said, that's not DOT. And the kids down here are big. Some of the middle school and elementary kids are bigger than me. And you put a 200-pound male in that seat and you hit the brakes, I could break. And they were so casual about it. My air pressure, when I was in Denver, when I was in Duluth, every place I worked, you turn off the bus, you pump the brakes down to 60 PSI, the buzzer come on. You pump it down to 30, the park brake would engage. But before you do that, you turn off the bus, push in the brake, the park brake, and you push your foot to the floor, wait for the air to do what it's doing, and hold 60 seconds. No more than 3 PSI. I had bus 142. The DOT inspections in Colorado, Washington, and Denver would have condemned that bus. I wrote it up again and again and again and again and again and again. My supervisor said, Mike, this bus is old. They don't always have the parts. I said, it's not holding air pressure on the test. I had a mechanic come up to me. He was a jerk. Claimed to be a Christian, claimed to be saved from drugs, arrogant, cocky, rude. He was rude to me from day one. Running his mouth, and I found out through the shop, they said, yeah, he and another guy have something against whites. I said, yeah, I can tell. He'd come out and say, well, I'm a mechanic, you're not. I don't, frankly, Scarlett, give a damn. I know what I'm doing. Some people out here feel the need to wear something on their sleeve because of their own blatant insecurities. Guy still works there. He's a jerk. The foreman said he was an a-hole. I said, why do you guys keep people like this? And we know why. Because some of them have privilege. I had problems, and they were not my own making. I came to work here with the same enthusiasm I came to Washington, Minnesota, Colorado. It was unreal what I saw. And a guy walked up to me, I was finishing routes, and you can't be riding up all these buses. I said, excuse me, what buses are you talking about? And he ran off some numbers. I said, I didn't ride up any of those. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, instead of putting it in reverse, which some of these people do not have a reverse gear, said, well, somebody wrote up that the hood latch was busted. And I said, well, that's kind of important, dude. But Mike, you got to understand, we can't do all this. I said, dude, it's DOT that we do a pre-trip. What you guys choose to do is your business. My job is to ride it up. I can get pulled over inside. Mike, they ain't going to pull you over here. They don't even touch us. I said, when you have a bad accident and there's a fatality, that is going to change. I said, my job is to report. I'm not telling you what to do, but I have the right to refuse to drive a bus if it doesn't meet the basic safety. I can go on the road with the clearance light out. I cannot go out the road with seats going like this and the bottom cushion falling onto the floor. One of the rude Caucasian foremen, I said, I need to pull that bus. I said, every one of the seats, I'd hit the top of it. This is metal right underneath here. And there's supposed to be padding. You should not feel any metal. They were broken down because these big kids grabbed the top of it, wrenched the top, and it's so hot down here that the foam and the glue separate, and it will split at the top and slide down. So the vinyl covers right on the steel bar. If a kid, they slam on the brakes, kid hits their head, and they could get a concussion. And this is what a lot of the people down here fail to realize is even though some of these kids were incorrigible and horrible, I don't want kids to have something happen to them because of my negligence. And when a foreman says, you can't take that bus today, I said, I have to. I said, there's like 20 seats in there that are bad. Well, Mike, you just have to patch them. I said, no. I said, the metal's showing. I said, did you hear the second in command said that no buses will be rolling with metal? And he'd get indignant with me. Well, you can't take it. Okay. And I had to learn to let go. That's on him. They do things different down here. I wish I could put this on 60 Minutes. A lot of these buses are junk. Absolute junk. They wouldn't even make a good motorhome conversion. They need to be wheels taken off, driven into the woods, and turn it into temp housing. And that's even iffy. When I could see the ground where the plywood underneath the subflooring, underneath the linoleum is rotted away, and it was hard to sweep. You're sweeping in these craters. I said, man, did termites get in these buses? They said, oh, drivers used to wash them out with the hose, which you're not supposed to do. The hose would rot the flooring. And I'd tell drivers, don't bring that hose in. Mike, somebody vomited. I said, don't bring the hose in there. People were told often not to do things, and they did it anyway. And bus 142, every time you hit a crack in the road, the whole dash go bang. I mean, there was no smoothness in the suspension system of the bus. The bus was loud. The AC didn't work. The kids were loud. I remember I pulled up at a group of apartments one day. The kids stood up. Plastic pop bottles are flying out the windows. It's hotter than heck. And I just looked in the mirror and said, why do I keep doing this? I'm getting older. Why do I put up with this? Oh, you guys, you can get on the phone and let everybody know I'm talking about this again. Here you go. Here's some scoop. Get a life. I got more life than most of y'all out here. I've got a lot of experiences, and I don't care what some of you think about me. I'm tired of it. I speak the truth. And this place needs to be ashamed of itself. People spending more time in the shop chasing skirts than working on buses. One took them 20 plus years before they finally fired him. He should have been fired the first year. And this one guy that was just consistently rude to me. I had a ladder that I was given permission. They had 2 ladders in the shop. They had a tall one where I climb up with the pressure washer and squirt the mold off the top of the roof. And one of the foremen said, I'm glad you're doing that. He said, I'm getting calls. by somebody downtown saying, will you take those ugly buses off the road? That's embarrassing. Black mold all over the roof. I'd cut it with the pressure washer. The ceiling was white, or the top of the roof was white again. Guy comes out yelling at me, Mr. Testosterone, Mr. Alpha. Yeah, you can't be taking that ladder. I said, I didn't take it. I got permission and I'm finishing up. Well, I need that. Actually, it was a smaller one. The other one was big and heavy. It was an A-frame ladder and it popped out. I said, could you bring me the ladder? No, I'm not going to bring it to you. You can go get it yourself. And the foreman confronted him. Said, Mike was doing something we asked him to do, and you had no right to talk to him that way. And the foreman told me, he got all mouthy with me, and we had to go to management. And the non-submissive African-American man who's I'm the big man. I'm the mechanic. Nobody else is like me. He was like that all the time. I never disrespected him. Till just before I was fired, I'd had enough. I was called to come and get a bus. And it was in front of his bay, back end under the door. I went to start it, wouldn't start. And I know some of these buses, you have to make sure the back compartment is closed because it hits a switch, safety switch. I went back, I popped it, opened it, looked, shut it. Went back to the bus, nothing. And I knew that this mechanic was buzzing around, and I'm like, I'm not going to him. And the foreman was doing something on another bus. I said, hey, it won't start. And another guy that was working with him said, man, that thing just started. I said, it wouldn't start. And Mr. Testosterone comes out and goes, what's the problem here? I said, it wouldn't start. I turned the key, nothing. I went back, opened it. You can't be opening the hood. You're not a mechanic. I said, excuse me. I opened it to make sure that the switch was being disengaged. Well, you're not a mechanic, I said. And I walked away from him down the side of the bus. I said, I've been driving buses 20 years. I think I know how to start a damn bus. Well, don't you use language at me. I said, I'll speak the way I need to speak. Stop telling me what to do and stop talking to me that way. I walked up in the bus. He started yelling at me. I said, dude, you cannot talk to me this way. I didn't do anything wrong. The bus won't start, okay? He goes, you and I need to go to man. I said, let's go. I flew off that seat, jumped down the steps, past his sorry butt, went right over the foreman. I said, this is what happened. Guy comes up in there. I need to tell you because he's just going to lie about me. Man, these people aren't mechanics. And he come over and I tried to talk to him calmly. And I said, that's a lie, sir. I said, he came at me like this right now. I said, this is not the first time he's done this. There's been a history. You can even ask so-and-so. Guy was an a-hole. A Christian? A Christian? I watched him one day during bus inspections. One of the emergency windows, the switch was broken. He had to replace it and he put it on back asswards. I mean, I could have said, wow, Mr. Professional, what's that? I didn't. The guy was a jerk. And I noticed something. It didn't take me long. They put people in positions down there that got a attitude. They put people in positions over the drivers that got a bad attitude. And I'm like, wow, this place is deeply mired in some problems. You ride up your bus and it goes into the circular file. You ride up the heaters. They don't care about the heaters. Defrost, but not the heaters. And it gets cold down here in Georgia. And I begin to see that there was just I don't give a shh mentality down here. And every morning, the mechanics are buzzing around in the, taxpayer-funded vehicles and, hey, coming up to all the pretty girls, hey. And even the other women said, man, I'm so tired of these guys skirt chasing. I had black women tell me, I ain't pretty enough. I ride on my bus, they don't do nothing but her bus get fixed. I said, I know what's going on around here. Anybody with half an ounce of intelligence can just watch and observe. I said, this place is so dysfunctional. I said, DOT needs to sit at that gate and check every bus that comes out and says, put it back in the yard, put it back in the yard, put it back in the yard. And then they need to go to the shop and say, who's in charge of these buses? They need to do that. And this guy that would yell at me and talk rudely to me, I'm older than him. I've had way more experiences than him. And he liked to make it known to me, well, I'm a mechanic. No, you're a moron and you're an ass. I've never questioned your mechanic ability. I've always been respectful. You just come at me full of wrongness from the minute. And you do it because you're black. That's why you do it. Because in your culture, you think that that's okay. But if I was to ever walk into your arena and talk like that, oh boy, we're going to have a hoedown. And that's why some of these people don't like me. Y'all listening? You out there getting ready to go to work? Tune in, turn it up, put it on the big screen, play it to your monitors on the bus. Let them all hear what I have to say. Yeah, you know what? 6 years of this stuff, and I dragged my butt to work. And I started getting depressed, and I started questioning my sanity, and I started going, these kids are rough. The working conditions are rough. And when I was working for the shop, I was told by one of the foremen, yeah, you can't be taking the buses the wrong way around the back. I said, I'm sorry. I said, all the mechanics do it. You guys do it. And I'm going slow back there, and I'm trying to get the buses to you. They had a different rule for me, but not for them. They told drivers not to go the wrong way through the pumps. They'd fly through there in the maintenance trucks. You know, I'm a firm believer in modeling. I had a woman, a black woman, come up to me, Mike, can you look at something on my bus? I wasn't even clocked in yet. This was when I was driving. She said, my bus won't start. And I tell the shop, and they're looking at me like I'm a dumb woman. And I went out, and I went to turn the key. I opened her back compartment. I said, that switch isn't engaging. I said, let's shove a little piece of cardboard in there. And bus started right up. Mike, thanks. I like going to you. You don't have to be a mechanic to fix some simple stuff. And I had people telling me they hated the way they were made to feel. I had women saying, I don't like going in that shop. Some of those guys are pigs. They're rude. I don't feel comfortable. They undressing me with their eyes. One guy would stand there, he reminded me of Randall from Monsters, Inc. Stand there at the front of his bay, in the front of his bus. The minute I walk through, he's standing there going. I'm like, yep, he's trying to start something. I'm just going to ignore him. Hey, Mike! What do you want, dude? And he makes some rude remark. And I kept my mouth shut, and I kept my mouth shut. And this is why, as a Caucasian male, I had to learn, how much, Mike, are you going to take from a wrong-acting black man or woman? How long are you going to continue to enable them to do this to you? Because I don't do that to them. I treat black women and people, black men, with respect until they prove otherwise. And when I can go to Denver schools, and a lot of people complained that, Denver was, not as great as, say, Cherry Creek or Aurora or Jefferson County. I will always remember that bus was old. It was immaculate. No bumps, no rattles. The air pressure, I plunged that brake, it didn't move a micro. Our mechanics were awesome. They never talked to me like that. We had a black foreman running one of the shifts. Polite. Man, I tell you what, I told the mechanics, I thank you guys. You guys are awesome. We thank you, Mike, for keeping your bus clean when we got to fix it. We're going to lay in a bunch of crap. I went out and pre-tripped the bus one day and one of the lug nuts was loose. And I was told, called on the radio, we'll send somebody down to tighten that up. I came back after routes. One of the black ladies came to me, you need to write that up. I said, write it up. Yeah, somebody's going to get in trouble for not doing their job. I said, man, that could have come loose on the route. Oh, no, we don't play with that. One of the mechanics ain't doing their job. That should have never come loose. They dealt with stuff down there, especially safety issues. And in Colorado, we did not have AC, but you could not have your heaters not working at all. At all. And I noticed something the longer I worked here, that people would just let things slide down here. They'll go give somebody a bus when theirs is broke down. And the night before, the windows, the roof hatch, the driver's window left open, water on the seats, water on the driver's seat, water on the dash. And I remember I went through 4 buses one day just to find a bus to drive. My lead driver, I said, ma'am, I said, they left all the windows down. The driver's seat is sopping wet. I'm not driving that. They wouldn't get on the drivers for that lazy stuff. This was the worst place I worked. And to get that stupid letter about unprofessional, I'm like, oh my gosh, superintendent, do you know the definition of unprofessional? It wasn't what I said on YouTube. It's what goes on daily down here. Favoritism and putting people in position that have no business in it. Rule number 1. One thing I've learned about myself. In fact, my supervisor had a talk with me yesterday. And they wanted to put me in a managerial position. I said, well, but I don't want to be in charge of people. And I said, there's no pay. And he goes, if you're a manager, yes, there is. But he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, several of the guys are already talking. He said, your work ethic has caught their attention. And they're saying that you are probably going to be one of the few people they're looking at giving a raise because you work like nobody else. I'm like, wow, God, you heard my prayers. Please let it be. Please let it be. They fired one of the best employees at transportation ever. I know my worth. I know those bus seats aren't getting done like they were. I guarantee it. But it cured me. My journey into school bus driving was starry-eyed, and we'd go down to Arkansas, get new buses, and I'd look at the tire tread and the different features. In Colorado, we had buses with the auto chains. You push a button on the dash, they drop down, and the chain would spin underneath the rear wheels. I've used them, and they are beautiful when you're on ice. Buses that had tailpipes in front of the rear duals, you push a button and sand would shoot out when you got stuck to give you traction. We even had 3 4x4s when I left in the 90s. You flipped a switch on the dash and it was all both axles engaged. I'm like, oh, I'd love to drive one of these. And I took pride in my job. I was selected to drive Ballarat, which they do not just put anybody in there. 18% grade, you go up in the mountains, you come up a road, dirt road. It's so narrow that two cars in place cannot get around each other. And I'm driving in winter with snow and ice, and in places there's no guardrail, and it's a precipitous drop off the mountain. And I would drive the bus. You can't take one of these transits up there. It'll bottom out. You turn on those cars, the step well is going to go. So we had to take conventionals, and we had a electromagnetic retarder on the steering wheel that 4 stages, and it was an electromagnet that would go, and that way you're not burning your brakes up. And the arrogance of this guy in the shop. I mean, my testosterone's been, I'm like, I was like, man, why don't you just shut up? You are a loudmouth. You trying to dominate and intimidate. He came up to me and said, why are you taking that 225? And I said, because I asked the shop. And they went, but Mike, that's a spare bus and I got to work on it. I said, well, if you need it, take it. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't want to have to replace the brakes and stuff. And I said, so why would you have to replace the brakes? I don't drive it bad. Yeah, but it's a spare and you're using it every day. I said, many people have used it for a month or more. I'm using it for the summer program because everything else is broke down. And basically what he was telling me is he didn't want to fix it or do anything, so don't touch any of the buses that were his buses. What kind of a dude is that? Arrogant? Thinks he's Joe Kingpin? And after repeated of this, I thought, I don't like this guy. I do not. Hey, I mean, I had to say, Lord, I pray that you deal with him. He's off. Telling people he's a Christian and a conservative. I'm like, boy, you couldn't tell. Could not. Even Foreman said he was an a-hole. He confronted about the way he talked to me about the ladder. Said, you had no right to go over there and yell at him and talk to him. He's doing it. And then he told me, you can't just go in there and take it. I said, I didn't go in there and take it. I said, it's shop material. And I was allowed to take that. I want to say, boy, you just need to back up your little Tonka truck because you don't. And that's the problem. This is why there's a problem in America, because you got a lot of people within that community. You listen and you stroppers get on the phone and call everybody. Get on that phone and tell everybody what I'm saying. There's nothing else you guys have to live for. I find it interesting that you can't stop listening to my channel. I find it fascinating. Like I said yesterday in a short, if I'm a kook or I'm off base, who's going to listen to this? Most people with half an ounce of gels, I ain't going to listen to this guy. Every time I talk about this stuff, you can tell that a whole bunch of people from transportation are tuned in. And you know what the devotion was about this morning? The courage God gives. The CEO was hurting employees with a sharp tongue. No one dared confront him. Everyone was afraid of him, including Jean. But one day the CEO berated a new employee, reducing her to tears. When Jean saw how everyone in the room stayed silent, he spoke up. It's like God's confirming me. Tell the truth. I think every school board member and every downtown admin and HR people and the superintendent that make big money, including the director of transportation, all those people in the offices, they should be required to ride in the back of the roughest and toughest routes for several weeks. No bodyguards, nobody like me. Imagine me as a white guy going into a setting from the movie Lean on Me with Mr. Clark. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine me sitting in the back of these high school routes where everybody's bigger than me and very different looking than me. And they're looking at me like I'm nothing. We talk about celebrate diversity. Many of them do not. It's not in them. They're taught by their folks, by their upbringing, by their school, by the liberal media to hate us. I can't tell you how many times I was on a bus where a kid is acting up, running up and down the aisle, throwing things, yelling the F word. Shut up, bitch, yelling at some girl. I said, dude, I have asked you 10 times to sit down. And I'll stop, pull the brake, move up to the front. Oh, man, you racist. I said, racist. I said, I'm the only white guy on the bus, and I'm racist because I'm asking you to sit down 10 times? How does that work, dude? Go move to the front, and I'm going to write up that as well. Learned behavior. And it's interesting, all this accusation that we are racist and we are privileged. Go to their neighborhoods. Go drive the routes where they live. We're not the problem. They tear up each other. And coming down here was better than going to a 4-year university. I've taken for 7 years now Afrocentric studies just by living in it. And that teaches you way more than a book does. It's depressing. Look at me. I'm happy. I came out here and I was getting beaten down and beaten down and beaten down and beaten down. I will tell you something right now. People driving those raggedy buses and the new ones within 2 years are tore up. A lot of drivers don't take pride. People give drivers a new bus and they don't bother to sweep it. Don't bother to report that the seats are being gutted by the students. Why did they give this person a new bus? When I was in Duluth, we had a very strict boss, very stoic. He never would come in and say, good morning, Mr. Nelson. He was cold. The dispatcher would greet me. And I was called into the office by the other dispatcher. He could be rude. His name was Rudy, and we called him Rude Meister because he could be very cutting on the radio. Said, you're given this bus because you're going to be doing the grocery thing Tuesdays and Wednesdays with the seniors, and it has BY plates. And he's very rude about it. And I went up to the owner. I said, thank you for $393. The owner told me something different. He said, yeah, Mike, you had bus 380 and you took care of it like it was your classic car. I didn't hear you complain about it. So everybody drove that bus, fussed about how loud it was, how hard it was to shift, and you earned the right to get a newer bus and an automatic. He said, I don't go by seniority here. You walk to work, you take the bus isn't running on a Saturday, and you're walking all the way 8 miles to come do a trip to Wisconsin with girls basketball. He said, yeah, I'm going to reward that. We had 2 drivers. One that was recently given accolades. Why they were not fired? They were stealing. They're sitting in their bus having pizza parties in the back of the lot or going to restaurants when the program had ended. They acted like they were taking kids home and milking the clock. And even the assistant director told me this. Came down to where I was doing seat repair, and I said, why were they not fired? Well, that's what I'm wondering. She's friends with both of them. I'll tell you what, this is worse than the good ship Lollipop, man. And what's funny is I've talked to other people and they're like, why do these people not get fired? I said, I have no idea. We had a rude woman years ago in Denver. She stole $80,000 from the union. She was the treasury. She took $80,000, paid for her college and some trips and stuff. She was fired. And they never went after her. She was screwing around with a black man who was married. And I remember when I worked, there were 2 terminals at Denver. A Mexican girl came up to me distressed. Mike, you know that guy over there? I said, yeah. It was a black guy. She goes, he demands that I pre-trip his bus. I said, excuse me? I said, that's his job. Because she was a driver. And I said, why do you do it? He's creepy, Mike. I said, tell him no, that's his job. I said, if you don't, I'm going to walk in there and turn that crap in. No, Mike. He'll harass me if you say anything. I said, wow. And it was a mixed bag because every time we had in-service, all the black women would give me hugs. And I worked, my last 7 years, I worked there where the terminal is mostly Hispanic. And I said, man, I love when we're in service. All the ladies from Northeast are always nice to me. And even they noticed that. Man, they all like you over there. I said, because I worked there in the 90s. There's some good people over there. I remember when I first walked into Northeast after I got certified to drive, I was given Northeast because it was on my side of town. When I opened the door and saw nothing but all black in there, I'm like, did I go to the right place? I did not know. I remember a black woman named Lillian Champion. She was a pistol. She trained me on my first route. She made an Afghan for my boy in 1999 when he was born. So I have experience with culture. I remember the OJ crap was going on. And I couldn't help but notice, wow, this really is among racial lines, isn't it? Blacks believed he was innocent. Most whites believed he was guilty. I looked at the evidence. We're driving around in a Bronco chase with AK rolling. And the police and the helicopter. Man, if that had been me, they would have had spike strips. My truck would have been filled with bullet holes. Talk about privilege. And if you're not guilty, what's this joyride around the LA? And then what really hit me was watching blacks standing in the middle of the freeway cheering them on. Nobody gave a shit about a white woman being killed and a Jewish man being killed. Nobody cared on that side of the fence. And that was when my mind started to pay attention to what's going on in America. The George Floyd, the Rodney King, Michael Ferguson, Trayvon Martin, all these case after case, same thing. You know, police brutality. What if Rodney King had hit a station wagon of a mother coming home from a PTA meeting with her kids and killed them all? Would the black community have rioted about that? They wouldn't have cared. And that's why I've learned, pay attention. Let's get to the bottom of this. Is racism really a problem among whites, or is it a problem with them? When I come to work at transportation, I came with an open heart. Depressing reality. The teaching has changed so much. And people excuse it. Well, Mike, it's their upbringing. Honey, do you know my upbringing? I didn't go out and shoot up a school for what I've been through. Kids have been through less than what I've been through in the white community, and they're shooting up an entire school. Thank God my mind isn't that fried. I love driving a bus. Every time Gene Barber picked me up on a Sunday morning to go get the church bus, I'd say, Gene Barber, I still like driving a bus. I did a Meadowbrook route, Glen Hills High School. Dealing with the challenges of kids that smoke pot at the bus stop, then get on the bus and light up and sneak and smoke. And then you can smell the black of the miles as they're lighting those up. And I'd find a package and then leftover stuff on the floor, cigarette lighters. And they take their vapes and hold them up against the back of the seat, starting to burn. The clowns here don't realize it takes 2 minutes for a school bus to be fully engulfed in fire just off seat material alone. I remember when I was in Spokane, all white kids, and I smelled a lighter. I smelled flame. I stopped and I walked down the aisle and I could smell it in one area, and I said, hey, what's going on back here? What's the matter, mister? I said, I'm smelling fire. Everybody denied it. God is good to me. One of the last kids to get off that bus said, please don't say anything, but it was that blonde-haired girl. She lit up a cigarette lighter. I think she stuffed it in between the seat. She said, can you show me where it is? I went back there, pulled the seat cushion. There it was. And a burned piece of paper. I said, thank you. Wrote it up. They pulled the camera. They busted her and kicked her off. Out here, it's a permission slip. You can act disrespectful. You can cuss out drivers. You can fly over the seats. You can tear things up. They won't kick them off. And then to listen to management, we will not tolerate this. They're ripping up seats. We're going to do something about it. Yeah, they charged one parent 1 year. One parent out of dozens of buses being just destroyed. And then when they rip a hole in the seat, they throw their half-eaten sandwich, their half-eaten apple, their half-filled juice box. And then you get on your bus on Monday morning like, what the heck is that smell in here? All the rotting trash in the seat. When I would pull the seat cover off, it literally rained stuff. Cell phones, lighters, Black and Mild boxes, busted knives, fold-out knives. I started telling drivers, I said, do you know what they're doing in the back of your bus? I said, I'm finding weapons back there. Weapons? I said, yeah, knives. Dagger knives. And when a supervisor told me, Mr. Nelson, do not go to the back, do not walk your bus. These kids could jump you. A black woman admitting these black kids could jump me and I have no protection. That's reassuring. And I told her, with all due respect, if I act like I'm afraid to walk to the back of my bus, what am I telling these kids? I don't get up in their face. I'm walking back to do a student count. Or if there's a problem, I walk back and say, is there a problem back here? And I did realize, yeah, if they wanted to jump me, I'd be a sorry son of a gun. When black leadership admits to me that there's a problem and I could be in danger, what is the school district doing about this? And people get these cushy, high-paying jobs and wear their little professional clothing, and they have no clue, and they don't want to get in the back of those buses. And they treat the bus drivers like they're peons and serfs. There is a caste system in our society. Bus drivers take a lot of abuse. way more than these teachers in the classroom do. And you hear these teachers whining about their pay and whining about the disrespect. Try driving with your back to 80 kids, lady. Cry me a river. Try pre-tripping a bus. It's broken. Try pre-tripping another bus. And then you get in one and they left all the windows down. It's the only bus you got to drive and your butt's wet. Yeah, you know, cry me a river. You're in a classroom. You tell the principal something's going on. Kids pull down the office. We write up a kid 38 times. They pull the video. Well, we didn't see anything. Oh, funny. The camera stopped working until a driver does something and then the camera sees it all. I went to management. I said, you know why the camera's not seeing anything? I said, come here, let me show you something. I said, there's no camera in the back of this bus. You can slink down behind those seats and be hashing the whole seat. The middle camera's not going to catch what you're doing back here. I remember even in Denver that my supervisor she's retired out, Krista, she still calls me, keeps in touch. I was one of her good employees. In fact, the HR lady, the woman who was in charge of HR, the day I got hired, I said, you can call. She's probably in her office right now. And she answered. And Krista said, you're getting a good employee and we are bummed because you're getting a good one. And the HR lady said, I have never been able to pick up a phone and get that kind of reassurance that quick. That place shredded my ass on a cheese grater. And I kept coming to work. I kept coming back for more, almost like punishment. And then to ride as a monitor on these buses, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's dangerous. And I faced my fears and I'd greet the kids and the hatred and the hostility, you could feel it. Man, I think of that song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. I'm in the back of the bus like a firefly back there going and the darkness comes in and you're like, help! Most of the monitors do not sit in the back of the bus. Ever. Some of them were bringing their blanket and pillow. Management said, drivers, you shouldn't bring their blanket and pillow. Don't open the door. I had monitors that didn't do a thing. I had to stop the bus, pull the brake, walk back. And I never chewed out the monitor. I'm not their boss. I'm like, really? I got a monitor and I've got to do all this? So when I started writing, I said, we're going to do something different. I'm going to go right back where the action is. And it was effective. You want to talk about psychology? I had kids, girls. Why are you sitting back here? I said, I'm a monitor today. And I've been asked to ride on the bus because there's complaints. Complaints about what? I said, behavior, disrespect, tearing seats up. I said, y'all sit down and talk to each other, enjoy the ride. There shouldn't be any issues. Yeah, but why you got to sit back here? Honey, you don't own this thing. I wanted to say that. I work here. I'll sit wherever I want to on this bus. I didn't say that. It's funny, everybody wants to get mad at me for telling the truth and say I'm racist, but they don't want to deal with the racism that's dished out constantly down here. These kids are not going to be successful when you let this crap go on and on and on. You're teaching them, you're modeling that it's okay for them to get one up over the system and authority and be disrespectful. And then when they finally get shot by a cop because of noncompliance, that same community, systemic racism. No, you got a girl and a boy that didn't know how to act, and you didn't teach them then, and the school district enabled and coddled them. And, well, we can't kick him off the bus because mom doesn't have a car. He's 6 feet tall. He's the big bad Leroy Brown. Let him walk his sorry butt with his 6 inches of butt cheeks hanging out. I think he'll be just fine. No, we won't do that down here. That's demeaning. Welcome to the woke, stupid world. And then I go to work and do my job with pride, and you got to get yelled at. and verbally abused by a so-called Christian conservative black guy who Foreman said, by name, blank is an a-hole. I said, yeah, he is. When they fire good people, when they hire poor people, and they keep poor people there, poor employees, then you know you're dealing with something that's whack. Transportation has lots of chiefs. A foreman. They have no authority. They can't fire anybody. They can write up somebody. One lead driver said, I refuse to write up people. Why? The petty stuff. I saw one woman came to work in the afternoon. They sent her bus out because it was a newer bus on an out-of-town trip. Why? Why'd you take my bus? She turned around, got in her car, and went home. If any of us had done that at Denver, Duluth, Washington, that would have been instant termination. Not here. I was harassed, verbally abused, racial slurs made, threats veiled and literal. And management just went, and it's the anniversary, man. It's kind of fresh in the mind. And, I pray God help me to get peace with that. Like I said, I'm not a danger to anybody, and the picture that was painted of me by the superintendent was false and atrocious. By the grace of God, I'm not one of these people that wants to make the evening news doing something dumb. I have a heart as big as the ocean, and the hatred down here, the biggest problem I see in Richmond County with a lot of the citizens in this area is they have a gross inability to hold the full-length mirror and look at their own selves. White people, racism, this, that. And it just continues. Just like that song on Lamb Chops. This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. I call it the racial carousel. Stigmatize somebody by calling them racist. It relieves you of all personal responsibility. To pony up, you bullcrap. You see that bus right there? Had a mostly black K-8 route that nobody else wanted to drive. Those kids did not act anything at all like down here. And I was in the hood, the bad neighborhoods. I rewarded these kids. They were so good, I rewarded them every other Friday. So y'all stay seated and y'all be respectful and we'll bring candy bars. Yes. And the kids policed the route. Man, sit down. Don't be standing up. I want my candy bar. Hispanic male had it in the afternoon. I'd hear him calling on the radio. I got on my bus one morning. I said, y'all, I want to talk to you about something. I said, why are you giving Robert a hard time? Who, Robert? I said, your afternoon driver. Mike, we don't like him. I said, I heard him call on the radio. You guys are acting up. Why are you doing that? I bragged you guys up. why do you fall apart in the afternoon? And somebody said, because we stupid. I said, that one, you guys don't do that to me. They said, well, you're cool. I said, I'm not cool. I expect you all to follow the rules. I come out here, rules? What are those? They're nitpicking at the drivers, picking at this, picking at that. And you write up these kids. I had to write up a student 38 times. And I begin to see the culture down here. 38 times. And it wasn't for petty stuff. I had him in the front. He'd get up out of that seat, run back. Shut up, B.I.G. I said, man, get in your seat. I'll write you up for cussing and walking around. After 38 times, they finally kicked him off. I went to Florida for 3 months. I left. I came back. The boss wanted to put me on different. I said, no. I want my old routes back. I heard you got somebody that's not permanent on there. I said, he goes, you want to go back to those routes? I said, yeah, I'm not going to let these kids beat me. And he told me, you're the first white guy that's been down there on the bottom on the routes. I said, really? He goes, I have to give you credit. Those kids are tough down there, and you want to go back to that? This kid who I had written up and got on, oh my gosh, you're back. I'm so glad to see you. I said, you are glad to see me, Mr. Write-Up Sheet. Yeah, the other driver cussed at us. They're throwing the black driver on the bus because he told him to sit the F down. I said, well, you know, you guys do anger people. You know that, right? We had no right to cuss. I said, coming from you who cusses every day. I said, dude, you can avoid all this. Well, he finally done it. One too many times. They kicked him off. And I'm running my route in the morning. The mother would come out to the bus and there's alcohol so strong. She come up to my boss. Excuse me, can you take my son? I said, no, ma'am, he's been kicked off. But I don't have a way to get him to school. I said, ma'am, I tried to work with him. I put him in the front. He refused to follow directives. I cannot bring him on. This woman looked at me with all that drunken breath at my door. Oh, you can't take him to school, but you refuse access to a public education. No shit, she said that. I waited until she stepped away and I shut that door and I gently pulled off. I thought, I'm going to shut my mouth. Everything in me wants to say, honey bunches of oats. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're drunk as a skunk. Do not tell me how to do my job. Your boy's running all over your butt every day. And the men down here, they want to play Mr. Testosterone and Mr. Dominance. Look what you've done to your kids. You love and leave these black women. You love them and leave them. And you cheat on your own wife. And then you leave them. And then you have a kid and you leave them. And y'all focused on my race? Huh. How's that work? This has been an education. And people don't like it when I tell the truth. Because people would rather put their head in the sand and ignore this. They must enjoy this. The black woman must enjoy being loved and leaved. They've gotten so used to it, it's become addicting. How many boyfriends can I have in 1 week? Let's play who's going to date the most guys and mate them all within a week. You can be the next contestant on being used again. And me, I don't want to use a black woman or anybody. I'm like, if I had a nice woman that was a lady and believed what I believed, I'd take her out and treat her like a lady. And no, I'm not her ATM. But they don't want me. They've gotten so used to this cyclical dysfunction that they've become addicted to it. Just my observation. Hey, make sure it's Friday. Get on that phone, folks. Don't let this opportunity go away. Get on that phone and call it. Mike's on the TV again. Let everybody know. I'm just amazed at that. See, people tell me things. You all back there talking and thinking it's in the shadows, and there's other people that say, Mike, so and so, so and so. Yeah, you don't want it to be known, but yet somebody out there hears you and somebody says, this is hysterical. And why y'all listening if I'm such an idiot? Because it's the truth and you know it. You know deep down in your core, I'm not lying. And I mean no malice. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. I don't work there anymore. I can talk about this thing. I can talk about what was done to me. People say you're mentioning name. I didn't mention a name. I mentioned the name of two people that wrote letters, signed their name to it. This is a public entity, and they publicly smeared me, and I have a right to read that letter and talk about it. I don't threaten. I don't mean harm, and that's my right. That's a legal right. Somebody write a nasty letter about me, I can read it online with their name on it and say this is bullcrap. Absolutely. Because you know what? I have things to compare it to. Look at my bus. That was a beater bus. The outside, man, that thing gleamed. I love my bus. That big, beautiful, flat metal dash. Man, I remember I was in Duluth. It was snowing so damn hard. Cars were getting stuck. I was doing a morning route. And I had a purple and white poncho striped like Where's Waldo? And it was coming down. And I remember one of the elementary girls said, man, Mike, what is that? I said, it's my purple poncho. She's like, that's funny looking. And in Duluth, where everybody's very stoic and boring, their drivers are looking up at me and I'm loud and colorful and it's snowing to beat the bed and I'm grinning from ear to ear. My boss said one thing one day. He said, it's so funny to listen to everybody born and raised here griping about the weather, and Mike Nelson doesn't even wear a full jacket and he comes in here smiling saying, I love this. Somebody said, I think he got brain frozen. I love driving a bus. I love my kids. I love my students. There was a kid named Kyle. You drive it way out in the country and there'd be snow and you looking for landmarks out there. You can't see the address. And I'd see something that looked like a fire hydrant. He stands so still in his dark jacket, but it looked like a fire hydrant with the plug out front. I'm like, yep, fire hydrant's there. Kyle was a trip. I'm going along the edge of Lake Superior on Highway 61, coming back to town to go to Lester Park Elementary. And I look up in the mirror and Kyle has got his feet on the top of the seats and got his hands on. I looked up, I said, Kyle, what are you doing back there? And he went, floop, and fell into the seat. I stopped, I said, come here. What are you doing? And he had that sheepish, crap-eating grin. I said, we're going 55. And if I hit the brakes, what's going to happen to you? You're going to cannonball to the front of the bus. He'd reach up. He'd be sitting up in the seat, and he'd reach up and dig in his nose. And I'd see him go like this. And I wouldn't call him by name. I said, hey, don't be wiping boogers on my seat. Shoop! True story. And one day the kids all started, there was a noise. I said, hey, what's going on? It was cold. There's ice on the inside of the glass. 25 below, day with the sun out. My bus looked like an igloo. There was ice so thick that the sunlight's cut down. It was dark in there. I mean, ice thicker than my nails. I mean, the kids would sit there and dig into the ice. And it's leaving frosted shavings all over the seat. And the metal, the aluminum in between the windows would freeze up. I mean, we're talking Polar Express, folks. And the kids started yelling that Kyle brought a cat on the bus. Well, I'm 30 miles out in the country. I'm like, a cat? I stopped. I said, Kyle, come here. Did you bring a cat? Yes. I said, now why'd you do that? That thing is probably scared. I said, where's the cat? We don't know, Mike. It's running around under seats and it's spazzing out. I said, leave it alone. Calm down. I dispatched. Said, hey, I need a principal to meet me at the school. Kid snuck a cat under his jacket and it's running loose in here. The other drivers are like, Mike has the most interesting bus routes of all of us. Get to the school. The principal comes to the door. I open it. I say, come on real quick. The cat's loose. She comes on. I slam the door. Kyle, you know, your mom works downtown. I've already called her. And she's going to have to come and get this cat. You think she's going to be happy about that? Taking off work. And the teacher walked down the aisle. And it took a minute. She got the cat. Oh my gosh. The stories that I could tell about children and their shenanigans. And buttholes get on the internet trolling and saying horrible things about me. You don't pass background checks and drive a school bus if you're cooking. I did it for 20 years. I don't want to drive buses no more. Just empty. If a factory called me and said, Mike, can you be our driver? We'll pay you well. Oh, man, would I have a blast. Driving an empty bus, turn up that radio, put the cruise control on, and whoa, on the radio, driving a new bus, no kids, nothing to sweep. That's called living a dream, baby. I love driving yellow. I like looking in my side mirrors and seeing that steel all the way back. I loved it when it snowed so hard and you know it's going to be a nasty day. And I'd get all my kids. I remember a kid said, you know what I hate about riding your bus? I said, what's that? You get us to school every day. All these other buses get stuck and you're not going to get stuck. I said, isn't it fun? No, Mike. You're making me mad, Mike. I said, I ain't going to let a little snow stop me. We had a nasty storm that hit in Halloween in Duluth in 91, 92. They called it the mega storm. Started snowing on a Thursday. We were sitting at the terminal. We'd leave 1:30, get out to Birchwood Elementary, and it was a lead skies day all day. Right around 10:30, 11, it started to snow. And we're like, man, it's really coming down. Dispatcher said, you might want to just get out there and get to your schools. We did it. And the time I was sitting at the school, it snowed a couple of inches on top of all that. By the time I get through the elementary route, I'm spinning wheels to get up the steep hill to Central High School at the top of the hill. How the school district in every place, and here too, they acquired the real estate at the top of the hill. That's like commanding view. That's worth some money. And they put a dang school up there? When I was coming down that hill, things turned to crap real fast. I'm spinning wheels on my route. Oh, I got 6 to 8 inches of snow. I get done with the route. I'm going down Rice Lake Road, and I'm not going no 55. My wipers are clumping. The snow, it can't keep up with the snowfall. And the cars in front of me are and sliding into the stuff and can't go. And I'm steering around disabled vehicles. I get back to base, turn off all my heaters, shut the driver's window. I go home. It was payday. Had my paycheck in hand. Caught the city bus, the Woodland Avenue bus. Get on the DTA. It was one of those Gilligs. Looked like the space shuttle. None of the windows could open. And they were very futuristic for the day. I come on the bus and the white lady's dressed like a baby with a big old baby bottle because it's Halloween. I said, hey, baby. And she knew me. She looked at me, she goes, Mike, this is horrible. I said, I know, I just got through my routes and people are getting stuck. Went down Woodland Avenue. We went down 24th. And as soon as she turned, that bus started to slide on that steep hill. And I thought, here we go. And the bus turned sideways. The front wheels hit the curb. The back wheels hit. She looked up. She goes, well, I'm done, guys. I'm sorry. You can either sit in here or get off. I said, we'll get off, ma'am. I said, I'm so sorry. And I felt bad. She's dressed like a big baby with the bonnet and everything, sitting in the bus with a big old baby bottle this big. What a sight. I wish I'd had my phone back then. I said, I feel for you. She goes, Mike, I'm going to be here a while. We shouldn't even be driving. I said, it's coming down. There were two other ladies we walked. And we were talking and trudging through the snow, and it was just my hair was covered. And I saw the one lady to her door, and then I saw the other lady to her door. And the one turned, you be careful, Mike. It's nasty out here. I said, I will. I love this stuff. And I continued on because I lived just 4 blocks up from downtown. Went in, made my dinner, went to bed, woke up the next morning. I couldn't hear a sound. I'm on Lake and Fourth. You always hear traffic. I look out the window. I'm like, what? I opened my back door. That my place was built into the hillside. The hillside was like San Francisco. So it had a downstairs unit. And then mine was up. The front was 2 stories. The back, my back door was level with the driveway behind me. I opened the door, and halfway up the jam, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 4 feet of snow, and I shut the door real quick. I made one call to Guy Smith at dispatch. I said, Guy, I just looked out the window. I'm assuming there's no school. He laughed. He said, Mr. Nelson, I barely got here. He said, the city buses ain't running. He said, no, there's no school. Enjoy your weekend. I said, dude, it's a mess down here. He goes, I wouldn't be surprised if there's no school on Monday. I walked downtown after business hours started. Walked down to Superior Street, which is 4 lanes. Busy. Nothing. They got music coming from the Holiday Inn and the Holiday Mall, which is an indoor mall with stores and stuff. The music's playing. I'm standing in the middle of Superior Street. The snow is swirling. You see Woolworths. No, Montgomery Ward. Which one was it? Montgomery Ward, the only one still open for a long time. The snow had drifted 8 feet to the top of the glass. And the snow was hanging off all the wires, and it was just surreal. It was like being in a snow globe. And you could hear the music. Wouldn't you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? I'm like, I wish I'd had a phone back then. Nothing is open. No cars are moving. The bank isn't open. Minnesota Power isn't open. None of the businesses, the plasma center. It's a ghost town. And I'm like, oh boy, can't cash my check. I'm going to go home and dig into my ammo box. I threw all my change in there. I managed to scrape enough change to buy groceries to get me through the weekend on a snow shovel. And as I walked past St. Mary's, I saw a lady with a Volkswagen Beetle going into the parking lot. She had her scrubs on. I said, ma'am, you need a hand? Oh my gosh, you got a shovel. Can you shovel me a space? She goes, I was called to come in. They're telling everybody. She said, people left their shift last night and they're short staffed. And they're saying, anybody can get to work, we'll pay you double. We'll pay you all this. I shoveled out a spot. We shoved her VW bug in there and I walked on. There was a drunk Native American. He had a corner place. It must have been 300 feet from the sidewalk to his front door. snow all the way up to my neck, plus drifting. Hey, boy, I'll give you $1 if you shovel that. I said, $1? I said, I charge $20 an hour, and that is going to cost you $20. You don't even want to work for $1? I said, I'm worth more than that, dude. I'm not shoveling all that for $1. Walked home. I thought, what a clown. You know, that's when people started talking in the neighborhood. That's when we all gathered outside that day and started talking about how bad the storm was. And I've learned something through life. It takes a crisis before people start to know their neighbors and talk and interact. We're such an automated society. Go to work, go to this, ignore everybody, tune out everybody. And our power was still running. Shoot, the power goes down. You get a bolt of lightning, power goes out. You get wind, power goes out. How many idiot drivers in Augusta hit a phone pole, power goes out. Helene hits, power was out for a month in some places or more. 6 days here. And I had a black woman come up to me and she goes, you know, they ain't going to give us power down here. They ignore this neighborhood last. I said, I'm sure they will. And I believed it. We were one of the first to come back. They got on our neighborhood fast. And I was like, that was a God thing. I miss driving the bus. I loved it so much. The Woodland Avenue bus was the only DTA running. I heard it on the TV. Church wasn't open. I grabbed my snow shovel and I got on the bus. I thought, I'm going to ride up to Voyager. I got off the bus, walked into the dispatch, and Rudy's like, Mike, what are you doing here? I said, I wanted to see how bad it was. He goes, you want to work? We will pay you. And you brought a shovel? I worked all day. Roger drove the front end loader that they owned. And I got in the buses and started them. He plowed behind the buses. I'd open the back door and get in because you couldn't get between the buses. Snow drifted even with the tops of the buses. You couldn't back them out because you'd break the mirrors off. So I had to get on the roof of the buses. I had to clear a path. We had to unplug these things. We had to dig down to get to the plug-ins. It was a nightmare. We got it all 100 buses? Dug out, started. The only casualty is I got in this lady's bus and it was running for a while, went to back up and it was spinning. And Rudy got behind me in the plow truck and he said, here, I'm going to push. Well, the plow blade was on the bumper and it slipped and dinged the back door. And I felt it. I'm like, uh-oh. And I was able to get it out of there. And he goes, Mike, if that's the only casualty, we did good. And then one of the partners that owned the company called from the Twin Cities. I happened to be in there and I heard the phone ring and I answered it. Who is this? I said, Michael Nelson. I said, we're here shoveling out. He said, I heard about what happened. I said, we're ready for school tomorrow, boss. Really? I said, yes, sir. They couldn't drive Monday. Most of the streets in Duluth weren't even plowed. We went back Tuesday. We had 35 stuck buses. Kathy Clark was stuck in the Lester Park Lakeside area. She called on the radio. I said, I got her. I'll get her kids. She's on, Mike, don't come down the street. I said, yes, ma'am. She had a short bus. It was a 53-passenger stick shift, and I had 393. Had the International S-Series. Had that big steel bumper. I saw her. I said, hold on, Kathy. Keep your kids on. Mike, don't come down here. I said, I got this. They had a snowbank. I backed up, and I took a running start, and I turned and went, poof. Didn't damage the bus. I knew it was soft enough. Came right up, pulled up their door. I said, give me your kids. Mike, you drive that thing like a rock star. I said, I'm not playing in this stuff. Grabbed all her kids, got through all my routes, and drove all the way across town to drop them off. And the police stopped me. They said, you're not going down that hill. I said, no, sir. Nettleton Elementary sat on a street like this. You're not going down that because you won't stop. It'll be straight into Lake Superior. So he blocked the traffic and we marched those kids off, and they had to have adults help them walk down that dangerous hill. I'm like, I can't. I even said to the cop, I said, I can't even believe we're doing this. He goes, it's crazy out here. He said, half the town's still buried. That snow did not melt all winter. Woodland Avenue went from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and we had a new battle for weeks and weeks. The snow became ice on the right with the snowbanks. There is no right lane, and we were told you drive in that left lane. These geeks in their pickups would get up on that bank, angled like this, and try to pass us. And you'd see them sliding. I said, man, if this son of a slides into my bus, he's going to be so in trouble. I mean, people were stupid up there. But I loved driving in the weather. I loved the snow. I'd have to clear off the back of my bus. You could not see the yellow, could not see the glass, could not see my red and yellow lights. I'd get to school. My bus looked like Frosty the Snowman. I had to get the broom and scrape everything off just for visibility. I loved driving a bus. I prided myself in being able to get through all kinds of weather. I drove in a freezing ice storm once. When I left, it was okay. It had drizzled. I get out in the country, and it's weird. I go up Vermilion Road out in the country. I go to turn left, and the bus ain't going to turn left. I'm like, uh-oh. So I continue. I had to run the route backwards, and I missed a street. I called in. I said, I cannot get to this street. That's okay. Continue on. Be safe. I get down into town. I pull up at the stop sign. I came to a complete stop. No other traffic, and suddenly the bus breaks loose. I'm like, okay, we're going. And I start sliding down Snively. S-curves, mansions on either side. 100-year-old brick mansions. I mean, beautiful, beautiful old world homes. No curb, no gutter. And there was a curb, excuse me. And the ice was shining the streetlights. And I'm not going but 5. I'm touch the brakes, take off, pushing the clutch. The bus is just sliding. The back wheels would hit the curb and it would go bump. And the kids would scream because they're being jerked. I said, I'm sorry, guys, it's sliding. Keep your head away from the windows. There's cars coming towards me. They're sliding. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit all these cars. You can say there's no God. I'm going to tell you, I've seen God every time I got in that school bus. And I went down Snively, and I was able to steer with sliding around every single car on that narrow road. I knew my bus. I mean, this close to cars. And I have to pull the seat out of my butt cheeks because I'm pucker marks everywhere. Then I get down to the stop sign at 4th. I stopped. I go, okay, I'm almost to East. I go to turn. The bus goes straight into the Catholic church and school parking lot. Bumps the curb. I pulled the brake. Said, all right, guys, I'm done. Those of you high school students want to get off, you may. If you want to stay on, you may. The school's right there. Do not walk down that hill. Stay in the snow to the right of the sidewalk so you don't slip. That was the first time in my life I got to really know middle school kids. Sat there an hour. After all that happened to me, the boss gets on the radio. All Voyager buses, please stop immediately. I'm like, the kids started laughing. They said, why is he saying that? I said, I don't know. We can't go anywhere. These kids talk to me. I talk to them. They said, you're pretty cool. I said, hey, we're having fun. What do you do for a living? Just sliding through Duluth. I have good stories and good memories. Richmond County was a horror story. These drivers, a lot of them were very nice when I started here. I thought, wow, these people are pretty friendly. It didn't take me long to realize who the snakes and untrustworthy people were. in the offices, in the shop, in the yard. And I begin to see something depressing emerge. I thought, wow, that's really in a funk down here. I'm proud of my 20 years. I gave it my best and I gave it my all. And I delivered safely all those 20 years, students to school and home. I had pulled to the right. We were not supposed to use our 8-ways on Arlington. Not sure why, but we were not. So I had to pull to the right, snowing, extremely cold. And they put the salt down, so the snow started to melt, but it was at like 28. What is the cutoff for salt? The ocean starts to freeze below 30 or something, or is it 27 or 28 below? The plow came by because it had just loosened the snow and it was all brown in the street. The kid comes walking down the aisle. I see the plow in my left mirror, and he'd think he'd slow down. No, he's going 45, big blade, and goes, the whole side of my bus was splattered, and it went and froze to the metal and the windows. It was dark on that side of the bus. Kid goes, what the heck? I said, it was the dang plow. Man. I come back to the yard. Driver's out there smoking, and Mike, what did you do to your bus? I said, I got splatted by a plow. So Mike, come out here and look. Oh my gosh. It was this thick of the slush. It just froze. All the windows, I said, wow, that's beautiful. I love driving in that stuff. A lot easier to deal with that than these kids down here. And wrapping this up, these kids, driving these kids made me feel like I had no worth and no dignity. I hated that. I said, these kids don't respect me. They don't respect nobody. They're horrible. They're selfish. They're nasty. They're disrespectful. And on the high school route, there was a, why can't I think of the name of it now? There's a school downtown that he went. You had to have good grades and not be a screw off. And he'd get on every day and he'd nod at me. One day his grandmother, black lady, come up to my window and said, I want to thank you for driving my nephew every day. You're a good driver. And she handed me an envelope. She made a $25 Walmart gift card. And I about cried. And it was the last day of school for him. C.T. Walker. I think it was C.T. Walker. Or was it A.R. Johnson? One of those. A.R. Johnson was a high school. And I didn't see her the next day to say thank you. All the abuse, all the crap I took, kids smoking pot, being rude, telling me just shut up and drive the effing bus. And all the years I drove in Duluth, all the years I drove in Colorado and in the mountains, didn't lose a life. And you come out here to endure this? And I get fired because I told the truth about savage acting people killing, or not killing, but assaulting a petite, small white woman for no reason. And that had been on the rise when I had talked about that. And somebody let me know, some of the people who were making comments. And I'm like, wow, really? These people have no freaking clue about life, do they? They don't see what their own people are doing? And we hear people use the term when they're talking about white people that are racist, they'll say they're ignorant. There's a lot of people down here that are ignorant and they're not Caucasian. We got those too. The South is not known for intelligence. I don't know of any prolific authors or literary classics that were written in Augusta, Georgia. They call this place Disgusta for a reason. At the end of the day, I gave my all. I gave my heart. I gave 100,000% to what I did for Richmond County. My conscience is clear. I was fired because of woke politics and virtue signaling, and a couple of butthurt people probably should have been fired themselves because they're lousy employees. I've been judged all my life, raised by an abusive mother who judged me, judged by a society that's full of hate, piss, and vinegar. I don't care what these people down here think. They don't know this. They don't know the God of this. They don't know what sin is. And they're going to stand before God and give an account to their hypocrisy, to their discrepancies, to their racial favoritism, to their hatred of my race, to them talking crap about me. I got news for you all. I don't care who and what color you are. I'm a servant of the Most High God, thank you. And I'm not perfect, and I never thought I was perfect, and I received and loved all of you the same. But when you're in a place and you make observations, you can definitely say that it's broken down here, dysfunctional. In fact, this place has had a heart attack, and you're going to need more than just the paddles to resuscitate this place. There's a funk, there's an oppression that hangs, and it's all because of wrong beliefs. It's all because of bad education. It's all because of people in the education system that want their little retirement package and their cushy little jobs. Nobody has the balls or the guts or the spine to stand up and fix this. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have our cute little slogans and our cute little task force and our cute little newsletters, and nothing changes. And that's why I don't like corporate America. It's all games. It's all suits and ties and gotta be professional. People telling you to follow chain of command when she herself does not. And you said, hey, and you're scared to say anything because if you bruise the ego of somebody down here, they could make you lose your life or your job or whatever. I mean, it's silly. So enjoy the gossip. Thank you for all those in transportation that talk shit about me and listen in. This is the only truth you're going to hear of this nature ever, because you're not going to hear it from your own. No siree, Bob. So I've scored. God is using me. And the Bible says something interesting about that. It says that as a Christian, we are two different things to two different groups of people. To those that God is moving on, we're the aroma, the fragrance of life. To those that refuse to love the truth and be saved, we are the stench of death. Me speaking the truth causes them to get angry and hate me because they love darkness rather than light. You can hide behind a color. That doesn't cut it. God is not going to side with you when you stand before God over color issues. He's going to look at you and say, you broke this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. You rejected my Savior. You judged my servant Michael Nelson when he told the truth. Who do you think you are? Oh, I'm a mechanic. I don't care if you're a mechanic. I never question that. But you don't have the right to talk to me that way. I don't care if you're the Black Kahuna and used to deal drugs and everybody was afraid of you. I'm not. Why should I fear? When I sin, I'm afraid. When I am wrong, I'm afraid. But when you're being a complete horse's butt and trying to intimidate me, I'm just going, run around in your underwear some more. Please. And if there's one message I want to say to the rest of society is stop backing up for this crap that these people are dishing out. Speak out. Speak out and speak up and let your voice be heard. Stop looking the other way. There's black people that are coming to the light. There's black people that are leaving the black thinking and saying, man, this is messed up. It is. There's black people that are exiting that whole racial victim mentality. Richmond County Schools is not helping children. They're a stumbling block. A lot of these kids aren't going to make it. They're just not. And when you say things to bus drivers, well, mom doesn't have a car, so were you supposed to put up with more abuse? I don't think any of these people down here in Augusta watched that movie with Morgan Freeman. Lean on me. I don't think they ever watched it. Because they certainly don't got some Joe Clarks in here. The movie did take artistic license too far. I actually talked to a black woman who said that movie was based on a true story, but a lot of that in the movie was fluff. She said it wasn't quite like that. But we all liked Joe Clark because he was the man. The fire department coming in there saying, you can't lock these emergency doors. And he said, well, then put your men around here and stop the drug dealers from coming in. Oh, no, they didn't want to do that. See, and that's what I'm after. That's why I like Joe Clark. That's why I like, because this is our system right here in Richmond County. You must act professional. How about if you stop acting and start being? Because this is professional bullcrap. You're not changing the kids. You're not protecting the bus drivers. You'll believe a school teacher saying somebody did something in class, go straight to the principal's office. But with us, no, you're going to have documentation and pull the camera. Oh, the camera didn't see it. You don't care about these drivers. You're full of cheese whiz. Spray cheese in a can. You do not. And I'm defending the black men and women that come and do their job, that don't behave in the stuff I'm talking about, that are also tired of these bad acting, ratchet behaving children, and you don't back them up. And the schools, it's just hit or miss, which school's going to deal with it and which isn't. When the principals and the teachers are trying to be friends with the kids, that's not your job. Your job is to educate, and education comes by modeling. And if you don't model and you sit there and talk trash about white people, what do you think is going to happen? So I'm a white guy, came down here, went to the bottom, and I even left for 3 months, and I came back and wanted my routes back. And wouldn't you believe that when I stuck with it, man, I'd be out in public. And some black girl would come up and throw her arms around me. I don't even know who it is. Mike used to drive my bus. Which one? Hornsby Middle. Somebody hugged me off of that route. I thought they all hated me. They need some salt with the pepper down here. The Bible says we're the salt of the earth. I'm a Christian. And guess what salt does? It does two things. It preserves meat. It also stings the eyes. And I notice I've stung the eyes of people that don't want to hear the truth. I know there's people in transportation tearing up my speech and making their comments. They don't like the truth. They're not interested in truth. So they behind in the shadows talking crap. They got what they wanted. They got me out of here, and they still can't leave my channel alone. That's hilarious. That is a psychological study we're studying right there. You can't take my eyes off of me. Can't stop listening to me. You're so curious about what I'm saying. You know why? Because nobody stood up and said these things before. You know, in the Bible, when the Israelites were running around clueless and God sent them a prophet, here's why this is happening. and they stone them. They killed them. And they do the same thing today. I'm being a little dramatic. They fire you. Oh, he be racist. Go tell God I'm racist. Let me know what he says to you. I'll be waiting. When people see a confident white guy who is not full of racial hate standing up and talking about bad behavior in a certain group of people over there, that's the difference between actors and professionals. Excuse me. That's the actors between real and professionals. Professionals act. They wear a certain thing. They talk like this. Have you ever watched the news? You got a man and a woman in there. The guy with the gelled hair. Now you see more DEI hires. And the woman's got the hands full, the body language and the little peekaboo shoulder shirts. It's like, if you want to know how to dress tacky, just watch the evening news. Guys are always in a suit and tie, but the women got to wear these loud, ugly clothing, and you're like, wow, she thought that was cute, and you're on a major TV program? Okay, that's funny. Professionals. It's an elitist system. It's a divide the masses. Well, Mike's not professional. He didn't go to college. He doesn't dress the part, and we're the professionals. Professional, huh? Get in the back of that school bus, superintendent. HR lady, if you so cared about offensive, ride in the back of the bus and listen to the way these kids talk to the drivers with racial and profane and rude verbal abuse. See, verbal abuse is wrong. If I was to walk into transportation offices as an employee and say, effing B, I'm sick of yo ASS, I'd be fired. But a high school kid can come up and say, shut up, white boy, F you. You write it up, he's still on the bus. Why are we telling kids it's okay to be like that, and then we're telling drivers you can't be like that? Why isn't we just say, well, they come from broken home. I don't care. Your bad home upbringing is not my problem. I'm here to drive your bus. Follow the rules or get the hell off. I cannot believe the school district is an enabler of complete moral decay. And I will speak against it. I believe in education, but this isn't an education. It's indoctrination. It's a daycare center. You just want to get the kids to school so you can have fun and play their music and they're not learning a thing but how to play fast and loose with the system. There's a video series on YouTube called the School to Prison Pipeline. There's another one called Indoctrinate You. Watch those. They're the truth. Go ahead. People in transportation hate on me. Call me racist. That's your default mode. I didn't say anything that wasn't true. Talking about an overweight driver telling me I can't move her bus, and boy, you better not move my bus. These people, many of them have this thing in them. They got their own sets of rules. And even though I'm doing what the boss or the foreman told me, you're going to tell me, because your culture does this, boy, you better not move my bus. Number one, it ain't your bus. And number two, I'm not boy. I'm a grown man. I don't call you girl. You just disrespected me and trying to intimidate me? Let me tell you something. You couldn't get up that bus fast enough to hurt me. You're overweight. And if you did try to hurt me, I could run around you for 26-mile laps and you wouldn't be able to touch me. The intimidating factor is laughable. Do what you're told. You're a captain. Be a captain. Be an adult. Stop passing the baton of black irresponsibility right down the line and then trying to intimidate me as a white boy. I know exactly what you were doing, lady. And I was nice and respectful to you the whole time I worked there. But you were entitled. You thought you could do what you want. And there's a lot of that down there. What are we teaching people? What? There's black drivers that have told me, Mike, when they cuss at you, just cuss them. I said, I cannot do that. We're not supposed to. Mike, they ain't going to listen to you when you're nice. So even transportation, some drivers have cussed out their kids. No phone calls were made. And then somebody gets a phone call. Up, you got to go. It's just catch or catch can. Today on Who's Going to Be Fired Today? I'm done driving a school bus. I never thought it would end that way. The memories I had are priceless. The good times I had will always stick with me. They weren't here. This was punishment. If I could, I don't believe in purgatory, but I would liken Richmond County to being purgatory. I must be paying for some sins I did somewhere, because that's exactly what it felt like. Coming to work was tough. I still had the courage and the joy to come to work because I love to work. But there were times I come to work going, man, I need to get out of here. This is oppressive. This is too much. These kids are bad. You got people in the manager and authority positions that don't know how to talk to people, don't show respect. There was even a lead driver that just always looked like she wanted to punch somebody in the face. And I tried to love her genuinely, and I did. And it just, there's a funk. Nobody will do what needs to be done to change. I said it, and I'll say it right now. I could run transportation than any of the directors that have been there since I started and was fired. These people are after their money. They're after pie charts and stats on how long somebody's idling the bus. And we're not going to tolerate this. Oh, you tolerate a lot, man. Give me a break. You're not out there driving those routes. You're not out there riding in the back of the bus. Take your square shouldered thing that makes you look like SpongeBob in front of in-service and set your butt in the back of the bus and watch what they're doing. I had a woman down in the bottom. I got in trouble on a route where they were adding kids daily the first week of school. And then I ended up getting COVID. And there was what, 90 kids or 80 kids on there. And when you're dealing with routes, you cannot remember who gets off where until you've been at it for a while. And a kid that gets off at, say, stop A decided to get off at stop C with his cousin. Well, I didn't know that, because that stop, there's like 20 kids pour out of the bus. Next morning, I come to work, and a guy that no longer works there, Mr. Nelson, when you're done with routes, I need to see you. I said, can I ask why? Yeah, you let a kid off at an unauthorized stop. I said, I didn't know that. That's bullshit, Mr. Nelson. I said, excuse me? I said, I asked you for a monitor. I asked you for a manifest telling me who gets off at these stops. You did not give me that. And he gave me an excuse, and then he used the F word. Get the F away from me. I said, you told me to see you, and now you're cussing at me. Why are you cussing at me? He yelled and belittled me. I was floored. In all the transportation I worked at, I was never talked like that by anybody. But Richmond County, a black man who was flirting with and having affairs with other personnel, including a school board member, that was known by everybody, and living with her at one point. They didn't fire him. They moved him into another position. He had mouthed off about a routing lady, and then he had to be under her, which I thought, well, that's funny. But I noticed management don't get fired. Principals don't get fired. They just get shuttled around like Catholic priests. You can do all these kids wrong and they shuttle you to another parish. You can screw up at a school, you can screw up at transportation, but let a driver act up. Bye. What are they modeling down there? Another guy was out golfing with one of the board members while he's supposed to be at work. They put him the head over maintenance. He's gone now. I can talk about that. Yeah, you know what? Somebody needs to oversight this, maybe the state. But I don't know, man. We're living in corrupt times. But yes, transportation is corrupt. They put anybody in there, a body in a position that didn't earn it, didn't deserve it. You got people that are working down there, good drivers, attendance is good, keep their bus clean, good attitude with people and me and others. They're not rewarded or recognized. They got more experience in, say, special ed or whatever. They don't get picked. They pick the most ratchet person yelling at somebody and cussing them out. I'm like, what in the world? Do we go out of our way to reward fools? Yes, nod your head with me. They do. People get mad at me for talking about this. But when I get multiple sources coming at me, telling me somebody called and somebody, and I'm like, you know what? This is funny. So I will keep talking about what I went through. And how many people will lie about it? Oh, he mentioned names. Did I? Nobody down there is currently employed. You know, it's funny. Your hate. You're so into hate that you can't even tell the truth. And I struggle in my mind with forgiveness. I struggle. I was upset about what happened, but I would never get revenge. That's not in me. I'm not a danger to anybody. But I have prayed that God will deal with the powers that be. Pray that he'd expose the charlatans and the clowns and the poor examples. And it's amazing in our country that the clowns can have the job, they can have the high salaries, and nothing happens to them. And it seems to be more prevalent today. You can get a job on Capitol Hill. You can be a judge. You let a guy that murdered his father out, and he went and set 600 homes on fire in Spokane, started a forest fire that went totally crazy. And he waited for the weather conditions. He planned this out. And a judge let him out for murdering the dad. You got a black judge in North Carolina that let a danger to society get on a city bus and stab a non-dangerous Ukraine woman. Wait a minute, I thought the Democrats were all in favor of defending the Ukraine. Yeah, until you come here and ride a damn city bus. Just seeing that, Charlotte is a terrible place to live. And guess who's moving into those places and taking over? More of that. Pattern recognition is not racism. It's spitting facts. And you got a race, many within that race that want to scream and yell about us, and we don't know, we're not black, we don't understand. And we just watch. We watch the evidence pour in all by itself. You can't ride a city bus and some black guy going to knife you for no reason. And not one of those black people stood up and took him to task. Nobody said a word. Nice. And when I said, if I ever move again, I don't want to be where they're the majority, I'm not allowed to say that. What is this, communism? Is this the Third Reich? Why is it that they can say and do anything they want, but I can't speak the truth? Because the Democrats hate truth. The school system hates truth. Richmond County transportation doesn't like truth. And the Bible says to expose the deeds of darkness. People claim to be Christian out there and call me a racist for speaking the truth. Partiality, favoritism is shown. And I called it out. And I remember when I got my first bus, I wish I still had the picture of my S-Series International. I love that thing. Loved it. I took pride in every single bus I drove everywhere. I treated the kids with professionalism and respect. In closing, and I keep saying that, the Meadowbrook route, I got that after I came back from COVID. These kids would get on every morning and I'd say, good morning. Hold out the mask box. Nobody would speak. And I hear people saying, well, that's just the way teens are. No, it isn't. It's the way rude people are. Bus drivers are looked down on. These kids are too foolish to realize, we got your life in your hands. The least you could do is say hi. You get on here and your little phone, you don't even think about me driving. You're just going to be rude. So Christmas break hit. This stuff was really chewing me up because when I had to deal with stuff on the bus, these kids were just rude. I wouldn't even accuse. I'd just say, I don't know who's smoking the pot on the bus, but I've asked you to stop. I've used this bus for bus safety training after routes, and I don't need school administrators coming on here asking me why it smells like weed. And came back from winter break, and I said, that's enough. Just treat them like cattle. Don't speak. They got on the bus. I look at them because I watch them walk on, make sure they don't trip, make sure before I shut the door, they're clear of the doorway. And I didn't say hi to anybody. The psychology of that was unnerving, even to some of them. I looked at them with a stern face. One girl started to pass me. She got just past me, turned around. She said, morning, bus driver. I said, morning, ma'am. How are you? I'm good. What? She spoke when she saw I didn't speak. And that girl got off every day and said, thank you, sir. I said, thank you for being polite. People don't realize what bus drivers go through. They just see the big yellow bus, iconic America, and they think that our job is easy. We sit on our butt and drive. And it is. Physically, it's easy. Mentally, it's a whole different ballgame. And I've always been made to feel guilty for what happened to the blacks. I'm always supposed to feel sadness and sorry for them. That what a terrible thing slavery was, and I'm supposed to internalize this. Man, I have nothing to do with that. I've been through my own hell. I don't put that on the black community, or I don't put it on all women. I was abused by a lot of women. I don't put that on all females. I take people on a case-by-case basis, black, white, Asian, or Hispanic, male or female, rich or poor. You're a douchebag to me, I'm going to treat you like a douchebag. But I kept my mouth shut at transportation because I don't want to end up in the office. When that joker of a mechanic was rude 4 or 5 different times, never approached me with respect. Hey, Mike, how are you? And you want me to respect you? And then he lied to the foreman when he accosted me. You're not a mechanic and you don't just mess with stuff. I said, you don't be touching. I said, I opened the back hood to make sure that I didn't touch a thing. I've been driving buses 20 years. I know how to drive a damn bus. Watch your mouth, boy. So don't tell me what to do. You have crossed the line with me. And I walked up and sat in my seat and he continued yelling at my door. Like a damn tough guy toddler. You and I need to go to the office. I said, let's go. I flew out of that seat, bounced past him. I'm not afraid of you, circus clown. Go get a job. Oh, he got hired by Richmond. And they hire fools that get away with this stuff. There are places I would have worked on, I would have reported that. And they would have said, you insulted Mike. We told him to get a bus. It wouldn't start. He does what he's supposed to do. You can go home for 3 days, no pay, and think about that. They sent a guy home from work yesterday that I work with. He came walking by me, said, I made a mistake. He told me to go home today. I said, what? And you know what that does? It makes me tighten up. Shit, they ain't playing in here. Make sure I watch what I'm doing. There you go. When you fire the clowns, people start tightening their own belts. They start getting better at their job. But you let all these clowns come in, which creates a clown environment, and it gets worse and worse. I was in a toxic work environment at Richmond County for 6 years. Racial hatred, racial remarks made to me. Nothing was done about them because guess why? Because I'm the minority. It's almost like they're getting revenge for what they went through back in the day. They're doing the same thing that the whites and the good old boys did in the South back. They're doing the same exact thing. Mirroring. I learned the psychological power of mirroring years ago. And I learned it with that Glen Hills High School route. I stopped saying good morning. I stopped getting in a tizzy that they're not being nice. So treat them like they're packages, walking and sitting down on a UPS truck. Don't speak to them unless they speak. It worked. It was a thunderclap across that bus. Got a culture out here demanding respect. They always say respect. You don't give it. Many of you don't give it. When a man stands up and says the truth and you call him a racist, not only is that a lie, but that's disrespectful. Show me in this book. Only Negroes have the right to talk about Caucasian people. Caucasian people are forbidden to say anything about the African American community. Where does it say that in here? Talks about in James showing partiality. Guess what, black culture? Many of you, not all, many of you doing the same damn thing that whites did prior to the civil rights era. But you can't see it. Transportation is broken. Put another suit and tie with square shoulders in there. That's not going to fix it. Put another guy who's nice to all the people that are the biggest problems in there. That's not working. Give somebody the title of Mr. Transportation who's one of the worst employees. I know for a fact, watching what he did and the things I saw, he never would have made it at Voyager, never would have made it at Denver, never would have made it at Kettle Falls, never would have made it in Spokane. They would have fired him day one of the stuff he did out there that I'd see. You cuss out a supervisor, that's automatic termination. If I'd ever walked into Krista's office and said, FUB, I'm done. You get on that two-way radio and threaten another driver to a fight, you're done. When I first got hired at Denver Public Schools in the 90s, guy was cool that hired me. 3 ways you're going to get fired. One of them was speeding in the bus. When I came back in 2012, they changed it. You get a ticket in a bus, you're going to pay it. That's on you. You want to talk about politics? In Denver, surrounded by Denver, are two little cities. One's called Glendale, one's called Sheridan. Sheridan is the only place I've lived that had a school zone that was miles long. You come in from this road, school zone. Turn left, open field, school zone. No houses, no sidewalks. You turn right, you eventually get out of the school zone. The Sheridan Popo are sitting all the way around that damn thing waiting for speeders. It's a moneymaker. One of our bus drivers zoomed right through there and woo! I said, you sped in Sheridan? She was telling me. I said, you know that they're sitting there. I said, my route goes right through there every day. It's the longest ASS school zone I've ever seen in the history of America. And they get people. They're like, they're no kids. It's open field. Whoa, woo! They were on it, baby. Personally, I think that should be illegal. What do you got a school zone a mile from the school? I've never seen kids walking through there. But even me, I see that flashing light, school zone. Oftentimes I'd do mountain trips right after routes, so I had the bus with the electromagnetic retarder on the steering wheel, and I just used that. Didn't even push the brakes. I'd go 1, 2, and drop it down to 20 miles an hour. Loved using that thing. I laughed. I said, wow, Felicia, you got a ticket in a school bus in a school zone. I said, I've got to be honest, you should get an award for that one. She's like, shut up, Mike. I wasn't speeding. I said, I said, now you're going to have a hard time fighting that. But Mike, we're on GPS. They pulled it up. She was speeding. I said, Felicia, you can't do that. Sheridan is on it. Even the Denver police don't sit at the school zones. But this one, that is their moneymaker. I remember the first time I went through there, I said, wow, this is a setup. I laughed. I said, this is a setup. The mother says, what? I said, look at this school zone. And all she goes, it's stupid. I said, it is, but you better not break it because they're waiting for you. I mean, you might as well just start singing the song, bad boys, what you gonna do? You got a school zone for 10 miles. They're waiting for you to say, why am I going 20 for this distance? That's stupid. But it's the game that Sheridan plays. And you're gonna go through there, you better follow their rules or pay the price. Man. I come out here, this place got their own rules and they make you pay the price, but I'm sorry, I'm an American, I'm a Christian, and I'm not ashamed of my Irish heritage. I will never apologize for being Caucasian. I didn't get to choose my emoji or my avatar. And I have been very bold in what I say. I thank God he put me in the body I'm in. I'm thankful that I was not born as an African American, because for me to believe what I believe as an African American would mean total alienation and hatred from most of that community. I am freer than most of them in my mind because I think for myself. I don't believe CNN. I don't believe Raphael Warnock. I don't believe Oprah Winfrey. I'm not one of these people that glucose only white stars and white politicians. I go after people who have a backbone. And this culture is so myopic and so into their little world. And they're constantly grinding gears against the entire rest of us that, by the way, we are still the majority in this country. And we're not harassing and persecuting them. We're not doing that. It's not allowed. But now it's gotten so bad with the woke agenda that there's this unwritten rule. In other words, the black community's made their own school zone, and it's 900 million miles long. And Mike, you can't talk about us. You're not black. Where does it say in the Bible, thou shalt not talk about somebody unless you're of that race? Show me the verse. Is that first or second opinions? If a race or a people group or teens or whites or anybody's doing something, it's called pattern recognition. And what I've learned is the psychology behind this is self-evident. When a guy like me comes along and I come out and I observe this stuff, and then this stuff comes down to bear on me and my employment is not quality and I'm watching this stuff adversely and directly affect me and the toxicity spilling onto me, how come a group of people that got tired of being dealt with horribly by Caucasians back in the day now think it's okay and to do it to me and I have to be silent? Why is that? What's that? I don't want to be the next Martin Luther King. Nobody can be the next Martin Luther King. I am the one and only Michael Nelson. And the problem is this community had no idea when they hired me, you picked the wrong person because I'm going to be vocal. Is this an education system or is it an indoctrination system? You be the judge. And you can hide behind words like professional all day. I don't believe in professional. I don't believe in task force. I don't believe in wearing the right clothes. At work, when I got caught up on my stuff, I started taking on other projects. Nobody asked me to do it. One of the owners came in and he said, "Did you clean all this up over here?" I said, "I did." "Man, that just made my day. I was so tired of looking at all that back there." I said, "Well, I can't get down those aisles. I'm sick of climbing over all that stuff to get things." Where Mike Nelson goes, people that are close to me will see improvement. This neighborhood saw a junky house become nice looking and the yard taken care of. If only everybody else could catch that. When I drove a transportation, I brought kindness. I didn't look at the black people with a chip on my shoulder. Black women would come up, hug me, joke with me. I'd come in the middle of that break room. "Baby, take the time, do it." They would, "Right on, there you go." I learned how to build bridges because I like black people. I don't hate them, but I will say this, and it's the same in whites. You got a funky mind that's fooked up. I don't like that. Lies are a threat to truth. Wrong thinking is a threat to my safety. I love driving. I was proud when I got hired at Richmond County. I thought I was representing an educational establishment. Not so. And there are people that would argue back and forth. And Fallen Angel, I want to thank you. You touched on something last night. We're going to talk about this maybe tonight. The sovereignty of God versus the free will of man. We see a lot of things happening that makes us question things. How much freedom does God give me? Depends. If you're not a Christian, you got a lot of reign. But even God could put his hand down like a bulldozer in front of you and said, "Nope, you're not going to touch Michael. Nope, nope, nope." God does put a hedge around us. Job, Satan said, "Have you not put a hedge around him? Take it away and watch what he does." I'm not as honorable as Job. Sometimes I've cursed at God. I don't care what a bunch of people in transportation think about me. There's quality drivers, men and women at transportation that I loved, that I respected, that I would hire if I had my own company today. And they're black. And what's sad is they're not the ones that are recognized. Transportation has a Pootie Tang flavor to it. And if anybody's seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. Pootie Tang. Shouldn't be like that. I did things that whites don't do. A lead driver lost her brother. She invited me to the house when they had the after funeral things, and I was the only white guy there in a sea of black in the bottom and down in the bottom. There were some black ladies that sang, and they were all giving me the evil eye. Not pleasant. For me to walk into this culture and face my fears and I'm going to quote somebody who used to work at transportation. A guy, younger black guy, says, I have respect for you. This is what he said to me walking across the bus line. He said, you bought a house and you moved here and you work here. He said, white people don't do what you do. You moved right into the heart of black culture, and I have respect for you. Did Mrs. Cobb put that on my letter of condemnation? Did she put that I fixed the bus seats faster than the locals who'd been in it for years and got control of the fleet without any prompting from my supervisors and foremen? I was self-motivated. Nobody had to tell me what I needed to do. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Now, you know that those bus seats are not getting fixed like that. It will take 2 years or less, and that fleet will look like hell warmed over. I said it. I believe it. I don't want to go back to that. I'm 60 years old. I'm adaptable, but I don't want to be sweating in those toaster oven buses, upside down, trying to pull seat covers off, smelling smells I don't want to smell, getting my hands, even with gloves on, with filth and germs and dirt all up in them seats. I don't want to do that anymore. I liked working on the sped buses. I like making a difference in those kids' lives. I saw a lot of drivers and monitors sit there like a stone face. Take your foot out of the aisle, sit up. I'm thinking, why are you yelling at that kid? Not doing one thing wrong. His foot went over the little aluminum strip into the aisle. The kid's big. And I would engage with the children. Even handicapped kids. There was a kid, he'd sit in the back of the bus in his wheelchair. And I leaned around, put my knees in the seat, leaned over the back of the seat, and I stared at him, and I started going like this. He was doing this, and he went, ha! I went, ha! Man, I had him laughing so hard, even the driver said, he likes you, Mike. The driver said, I can't stand that boy. He grabbed my hair. He shrieked. I said, you got to know their language. Mike, they can't speak. I said, exactly. You got to know their language. I did great with autistic and handicapped children. Mike, you're funny. Mike, you weren't here yesterday. We were sad. I hate to say it. I look at adults in suits and ties. They're worse than special needs kids. Because special needs kids know they have struggles and problems, and they're honest. Suits and tie professionals are clowns deceiving themselves, thinking they're something they're not. I am not a corporate man. I could never be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. If I was, I'd turn everything on its head. I'd come in with my shirts like this, not with my nipple showing. I'd be who I was. And I would turn the industry on its head. But I've learned something in America. You're not going to get hired if you're like me. Not for those spots. I don't bootlick and brown nose and kiss booty and all that. I be who I am. And when I see problems, whether it's at the place I work or any other place, I showed up at a condominium project at 15 and a half years old. Summertime, Mammoth Lakes, town of 2,500, a ski resort town. I knocked on the door. A woman who looks like she just came out of bed with no bra on and her shirt going like this. Can I help you? My name's Michael Nelson. I've been sent by the office to do some work. Okay, hold on, let me get my husband. She's too stupid to shut the door. Honey, there's a kid out there. They sent a kid. He's not going to be able to do this. Let me take care of it, hon. How you doing, Michael? Let me show you what I need done. We'll walk back here behind the last row of buildings. Big old pile of stuff. The old 1970s saucer shape with the flue that connects to a chimney, freestanding wood fireplaces. They had lumber and 2x8s, 10 feet long. They had cement blocks and everything back there. He said, I need all of this separated and all that thrown away and this and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. If you need any help, Michael, let me know. Just knock on the door. Nobody was watching me. There was nobody around. Well, there was somebody watching me. It was my best friend's dad, who maintained a condominium project in Mammoth. This is what he told his son, and his son told me. My dad saw you last summer. I said, he did? Mr. Stephan saw me? Yeah, he said, that small man is one hard worker. He said he doesn't fool around. I was impressed. She answers the door. Hello? I said, I'm done. You're done? Yeah, I'm done. There's no way. I said, yes, ma'am. Honey, he says he's done. See, this is what happens when you have people that have a belief. They still hold on to the falsehood. Little boy here. The guy says, all right, let's go take a look. He didn't even believe it. He come around the corner. Oh my gosh. I mean, he was like Daffy Duck. He said, hold on. Honey, he go back, come here, you got to see this. You did all that. Are you sure you don't have nobody? I said, do you see anybody here? No, I did it. Look at me, I'm covered in dirt. Man. See, I had to prove myself. I never had privilege. People looked at me with my glasses and my small little skinny body and thought, pah, him. And it goes on and on. Oh, he just racist. Yeah, I'm racist. I moved to Georgia. I moved into South Augusta. I work for transportation and I buy my house in what happens to be 99% white, 99% Asian, 99% Hispanic. No, not at all. On the contrary. Y'all on your layovers yet from one of your tiers? Get on that phone today. Now it's Friday night. You got something to talk about. I love this. Thank you. You give me something to talk about. Everybody, my life experiences, I don't have to sit here and be a professional. I just tell it like it is. I'm tired of the evening news. They're professionals, right? All of it is acting. Some guy get paid way too much money. I've been watching my weather app in Augusta. You know, it's been false almost every day. Rain not until after 6, 20% chance. Yesterday, it rained almost the whole afternoon. So, wow, this wasn't even on the radar. You know what I love about God is he pokes at the professional and said, think you're all that? Watch me throw in this storm. And they sit up there at the news desk. We gonna get any moisture, Marty Coniglio? Oh, yep, we got some moisture, Well, and here's Marty to tell us the weather. It's all acting and it's all kid stuff. It's all fake contrived. I'm so sick of that. I want y'all cut the crap. The gel in the hair. Her with her peekaboo shoulders and she's this wide. And yeah, you know what? I don't deal with that society. I try to avoid it as much as I can. Whenever you got to go to professional entities, it's like, oh, this is nerve wracking. All the actors and actresses with their suits and ties playing a game. They're not doing anything. They're making good money to play a game. I remember a pastor, Ed Bulkley, at that big church in Colorado said that. He says, in order to make it in the professional world, you have to play the game. Does God command me to play a game? I've never found that here. Did you know that the word professional is not in Greek and Hebrew and it's not in the Bible? That's telling. Did you notice that the Bible never tells you act right? Even the song, no parking on the dance floor. You better get a move on that body or I'll be forced to give you tickets, so act right. The Bible doesn't tell us to act. It says be transformed, be holy. The professional world is an elitist class, having their little code, their little rules, their little dress, so they can screw the pooch. They don't fix problems. Watch Washington. You keep voting in these suits and tie clowns. They look good. They look photogenic. And they continue to dig the hole that we're in. And transportation does it. Every transportation I've worked at has just some crazy stupidity to it. Some clown gets put in the position that has no business in there because somebody liked them. Not me. I get sent by an office that was a maintenance management firm for different condo complexes in the ski resort town. Then I went out there one day and cleaned up and made $83. $5 an hour, that was good money in the 80s. I took my sister who I couldn't stand, I took her to Swenson's and I bought myself an earthquake and ate like a pig. It was like 30 scoops of ice cream and I couldn't finish it all. They said if you could finish the whole earthquake, you get it for free. That's too much. Way too much ice cream. I was so happy I made money. I was generous to my mean sister. You know, it's funny. And to watch that couple as a 15-year-old, that couple with her boobies flopping in and out, and she looking at me like I'm some chump change, and her husband, he took the higher road. He goes, well, let me show you what we got. If you need any help lifting this heavy stuff, let me know. No, I don't need no help. You told me what need to be due, and I pride myself. I was very insecure for years. I went to Duluth, and in the summer I'd walk. I'd go across the aerial lift bridge, get down onto Park Point on the sand, take off my shoes, and I'd walk right to the water's edge and feel that sand and that cold water on a 90-degree day. And I'd walk fast. My stride and footprints in the sand till the waves wash. And you get down, miles down, and there's a public beach and the volleyball and the girls and the guys with the boom boxes, girls that are sun tanning with that brazen look on their face. I'm hot and I know it. I'm seeing it all. I'm very insecure because of these. And, you know, that's not the crowd I'm going to hang with. And I'd walk through all that, come out the other side to the windswept Minnesota Point, no houses, get all the way out there to a rock jetty, which when I walked out on that jetty, I looked out, and that was where the Edmund Fitzgerald left the Wisconsin port side on her last voyage, and I stood there and took that in. Legend lives on from the Chippewa on down on the big lake they call Gitche Gumee, with a load of iron ore 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. Superior, they say, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early. That good shipping crew was a bone to be chewed When the skies of November turn gloomy. That's still, there goes a school bus. They sound like a damn vacuum cleaner. These Cummins engines, Thomas's buses, they sound like a Hoover. Underpowered, make all that noise to go 5 miles an hour. I remember I drove 391 down to the Twin Cities, S-Series International. That bus, with a stick shift, I could beat anything Richmond County has off the yard from a stop and on the highway. That bus was awesome. Everything's junk. Circle the drain culture. I miss driving the bus. I miss those kids I had in Duluth. There was a Mennonite bun in her hair. The ladies would come out with those straight. Remember the picture, the guy and the woman with the pitchfork in her face? The woman would stand out there with her kids with that face. The dress, the bun. Way out in the country on the Lester Park route. The girl get on and the boy, and my mom wants to have you over for dinner. I said, you tell your mom thank you, but I don't own a car and there's no bus out here. Most people did not know I did not have a vehicle. I was living hand to mouth as a school bus driver. I was so excited to drive a bus. My pay was shooty, and I drove a bus full time. I liked working with the kids. I loved driving down snow-covered roads. I remember I had to do a damn turnaround way out there on the McQuaid Road, and the turnaround, there was a horse that had been hit on a winter day by a car, and it laid there dead and frozen like stone, 25 below, right there. And that was the only place for me to turn around. And it bothered the kids seeing that. And it bothered me to see a big, beautiful, stately animal just frozen solid. The birds couldn't even eat at it. I mean, that thing's going to get freezer burn in a Minnesota winter. So I had to find a way to divert, to redirect. As I'm pulling up, I said, horse biscuits. And the kids started laughing so hard. That's funny, Mike. And little by little, they weren't grieving anymore. Professionals, they looked down on me. They looked down on us. The Southerners, some of them have judged me Christians by my long hair, the way I dress. I got tickled when women that are grossly overweight in the African-American community at transportation. You'd probably get a girlfriend if you cut your hair and changed the way you dress. If I really valued your opinion, I would have asked for it. But while we're on the topic, have you ever had a salad before? Honey. If what I'm going to get is you and your physique, I'll grow my hair down to my butt and I'll walk around shirtless everywhere. I'm amazed at the lack of anything reasonable here. Those call lines are lighting up, folks. Somebody's on their leo. You got to see this. This guy's freaking nuts what he's saying. Don't delay. It's funny. People can talk about all the boo-boos that they did not go through. A group of people can talk about all the stuff that went on with their race that they didn't personally experience and live like it's happening right now. But me, I tell about real, not imagine. Oh, he racist. Funny how that works. See, that's what happens with Democrat thinking. It causes brain damage. Rush Limbaugh said Democrats are mentally ill. I believe it. The people that run the transportation and run the school system here, their mental state is questionable. And I will say it. The devil was the most beautiful of all creation, the Bible says. The devil is a professional. The devil does not come like Chucky or Jason. He does not. Or Mike Myers. He comes as a professional. How you doing today? So good to meet you. We've read your credentials and we really want to interview you and offer you a position. You know, pardon me for using a cuss word. You know what I like about Jesus? He's not a bullshitter. People are. Professionals are. This culture's all about hustling in the wrong way. They won't hustle to be a good worker and honest and, good ethics. They hustle. I left for Florida for 3 months. And a woman at transportation that was driving a bus, she calls me. Mike, I never dated her. I can't pay my bill and it's $400 for my utilities. I said, you live in a trailer and it's $400. What in the world? I said, ma'am, I don't give money to people, but I'll pay you back. I'm like, I live in Florida. I bet you that ain't going to happen. You know what I've noticed in Augusta? Something I did not see in a lot of other places. This place has got some entrenched dysfunction. Most of the people down here, the ones that are nice, are only when they want something. Other than that, forget it. I had a woman write me from Beach Island saying, what a show. You better figure out where you're supposed to be. And I'm sorry that this happened to you down here in the South, but then you talking about Dolly Parton. I said, was Dolly Parton saved? And I said, I don't know. She could have made a public profession of her faith. I saw a video this morning by Ken Ham on the feed. He took her sound bites and he analyzed them with the Bible. She said the gays are born that way. She supported the LGBT community. She said it's not my place to judge. Only God can judge. She believed in reincarnation. I heard the video clips. And I thought, Ken Ham's just reviewing what she said and contrasting it to the word. And people get mad at that. And I don't hate Dolly Parton. I have no vested interest in hating her. I'm not a Southern boy. I never got into Dolly. 9 to 5 was a great song. Jolene. But Dolly Parton, the kids talked about her chest when I was a kid. I never looked at Dolly and said, wowza. Because they were fake. And people say, well, Dolly, even one of my moderators who I love and respect, said Dolly did more for people than all of your subscribers. She did. And I'm no way disrespecting him. My point is, you can give everything to the poor. Doesn't mean you're saved. You can give to all the philanthropic organizations. You can bake pies for all the... Doesn't mean you're going to heaven. Dolly was nice. She had that sweet tea approach to everybody. I'm not criticizing that. But I've also been on the other end of that. I grew up in California. California has been the butt of jokes all my life. People used to say, oh, you're from the land of steers and queers and I don't see any horns. People were very negative about us. No, I grew up in California where we were riding the bikes that you saw in E.T. We went to the beach. We went to Disneyland, Marineland. We went to Knott's Berry Farm. We had everything. Nobody wanted to leave California. We had it all. We had canyons and mountains. We had the lowest elevation, Death Valley. We had the largest trees, the largest forest, 200-foot tall redwoods, sequoias. Come on. And Northern California is the cat's meow, the Mendocino coast. If I could live in any place, I couldn't afford it. I would go back to California in a minute if you didn't have any Democrat leadership and the whole culture shifted. Geographically, California is the best. I can't afford to live in Mammoth. Mammoth's a ski trap. It's a tourist town. It's not the charming town it was when I was there. Schatz Bakery, Schatz's Restaurant, Pea Soup Anderson's, the Clock Tower Restaurant, the Mogul Steakhouse, the Stove Restaurant. Those are all gone. Now it's corporate. A bunch of buffoons that wear suits and ties in LA and can't drive in the snow on the weekend. I tell you what, professional is an acting lifestyle. I don't like it. I'm a mover and a shaker. I get stuff done. And professionals don't care about that. Professionals don't like me because I can see through their veneer. When I talk to somebody, I watch their body language. I watch them. And you can tell he's looking at me like, this guy, I don't want to talk to him. You can tell. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in. And they're the ones that make the laws. They're the ones that make your workplace unbearable. They're the ones that get into Washington and make more laws stripping us of our rights. And more in our society, these so-called professionals are censoring our free speech because we're telling the truth and they don't like it. Corporate America is not your friend, people. They're not your friend. They're after something. They're nice to you to get your money. Just like the culture here. When a woman's nice to me, oh, they'll pour it on. Mike, it's so good to see you. Can you help me pay my rent? No. Even in Denver, if somebody wasn't nice, they weren't nice. At least I know they were not nice. A Hispanic woman come up to me. She'd been short and snarky with me all the time. I made a dumb statement in the room one day. Somebody made some put down. I said, look, I don't need this job. I can move anywhere in the world right now with what I've saved. The next day, because somebody heard that, Francesca, Mike, I can't pay my rent. I need $800. I said, well, what are you trying to tell me? Can I borrow? I said, no, ma'am, I don't lend that. That's a lot of money to lend. And I don't know why I wasn't, but you are so rude to me. You got a lot of gall to ask me to borrow money to pay your rent. You're not my girlfriend. You've been unkind to me. But I didn't. I tried to be professional. I'm sorry, I don't lend money to people because I don't get paid back. Well, but Mike, I don't lend money to people because they don't pay back. But, yabbits live in the woods. And they want to argue with me. I don't owe you nothing. You didn't manage your resources. Not my problem. Man, if I fall down out here, no one's going to care. I moved against all odds. No family, no support group, no friends, nothing. And that's why I want to move. I want to go somewhere where somebody cares. This place is scary. I could die in my house. And the only way somebody will find out is if they break in after I've rotted away in here for months. Ooh, what's that smell? And goes right back out the door. Pretty scary living in a town like that. This is America, right? Land of the free, home of the brave, rude, hustlers, professionals. We want to maintain professional decorum. Yeah. Good morning, kids. Welcome to my bus. F you, beep, bleh, bleh, N-word. Sit down. F you, man. I don't got to do what you got to tell me. Yeah, we're supposed to be professional, but the professionals won't deal with the unprofessional behavior of the kids we're hauling, and it's dangerous. I mean, at least if you drive for UPS, FedEx, or semi-truck, packages don't smart off to you. That looks pretty good. If somebody gave me a job right now just driving a straight truck to, say, somewhere, do a drop, and that's my day, and I got paid good, I'd do it. That'd be easy. I love to drive. And I used to love driving kids. I love working with the kids. I had many letters written and stuff in my file and Voyager bus in Duluth, and One night in Duluth, I had a black and green checked sweater, kind of had like the Angora. A very nice sweater. My black jeans, new ones that are nice. I'm driving to school bus. I don't wear fancy clothes, but I dress nice. Pulled down at the Holiday Mall on Superior Street. The Minnesota Bar Association was having a convention at the Duluth Entertainment Convention Center down by the Duluth Harbor. And I got a lot of those shuttles. We had the Ace Hardware Convention, the Maurice's Fashion Convention. Professionals. And I tell you what, I got nervous. All these attorneys with the square suits, the ties, they come up the steps, many of them with their steely-eyed glare, sizing me up. And I felt intimidated. One attorney sat right behind me. I felt his foot bump my seatbelt thing mounted to the floor. Geez, is this guy even old enough to drive the bus? I heard that. Okay. That was 30s. No, I take that back. I was like 27 then. I'm sorry. Drove them to their destination. Parked the bus, opened the door. I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder. Young man, when I got on your bus, I doubted you. He said, you drive safer than I do. You handled this thing very well. Well done, young man. Thank you for a safe ride. What is professional, Superintendent? You guys use the word professional to slander people, to censor people. I've represented the school district and the passengers and the teachers in every group I ever hauled with safety, respect. But you don't care about bus drivers. You don't care about what we go through. And you did not care about the experiences I had in 6 years in Richmond. You don't care. You're not even going to address it now. You won't address it. When they're rewarding clowns and fools and bad behavior, when they're putting people in position over people that cuss and act like something out of what's that dang that movie with the white girl? What was that called? Where her and the woman set the Cadillac on fire. Yeah. You got women like that being put over others in authority in a customer service position. You've got to be kidding me. That's professional, huh? Me talking about systemic racism from the black community and killing white women for no reason. And that alone bears a psychological. So grown black men have no sense in their own culture, but they come over to ours and they're going to attack a woman. Can you imagine if a black group had attacked a white woman in the 40s in this country? The men in the city would have pounded them and tore them up. There was no riots for her. In the 40s, there would have been. I would have jumped in. When I had my deuce and a half, I thought, oh my gosh, if I was driving in Cincinnati and I saw that, I would have taken that truck and pulled right up on it. You better get off of her. I'm going to run you all over. I would have done it. To see a woman getting assaulted like that. And after all that banging symbols of racism, none of you said that was bad what happened to that white woman. Nobody cared. You only care when it's something involving your Afrocentric dynamic, and I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. You post all your dirty little anti-Trump stuff, your dirty white hatred veiled. Hi, Michael. Can I borrow $800 to pay my rent? Can you give me $400 for my light bill? No. Then they don't talk to you after that. Used, this book is used. Somebody came to me that used to work in a shop, the clown of all employees that didn't turn a wrench most of the day he worked there. Somebody came to me and said, yeah, he walked through the shop saying, this white boy Mike moved here. He bought a house. He all nice to everybody. Any of these girls he date, they're going to clean him out of all his money. And then he came and said it to me. I said, you think I'm stupid? I don't do move in. And I'm not rich. And no, I'm not like that. Once I see what a person's all about, no admittance. Closed for business. I don't hustle people. Then I'm not going to be hustled. And once I sense that I am, bulldozer blade goes down. And I turn the engine off and I climb down on the tracks and down on the ground and I say, don't ask me again. You're not my girlfriend. You don't fix me dinner. You don't do anything for me. I'm not giving you money. I don't need to. We're both driving a bus. Manage your money. Stop mooching from everybody. It's Friday. I want to thank my viewers. And for all of you that get on the phone with each other. No, we got to say this. We gotta do this. All these people making their comments down there about me. They don't have 14,000 subs. They don't have people waiting for when I get home and get on and do my talks. Because you know what? There's not 14,000, there's not 1,000 people that want to listen to anything they have to say. It's transportation, folks. Bus driving is important. Being a bus monitor is important. But people don't generally go to them for high-powered talks where they're going to throw down money for dinners and suit and tie gatherings. Professionals in the school system is almost laughable. I don't think they're professionals. I think they're clowns and actors. Micromanagers, trying to be big, trying to talk tough. Oh, I'm not going to tolerate this. You'll be terminated. You'll be this. You'll be that. Yeah, but you don't do anything about the problem people in there ever. So a lot of blowhard, a lot of talky, no axy. And people can feel good about firing a guy. Oh, we're not going to tolerate this racism. That's not going to be tolerated. That's not representative of what we stand for. Ha! That's funny. And you got all that going on. Yeah, that's rich. Somebody asked me if they invited you to come back. Would you come back? No. Only under certain conditions. And boy, there'd have to be some in writing, signed, signatured agreements. I have a right to freedom of speech. And you can pay me for the 20 days of investigation that you should have been paying me, because not only did I work hard those years, if you were to go and get an independent contractor to do what I did, you'd be looking at $3,000-$4,000 of labor per bus on the big jobs. You paid me $18 an hour. You got a deal. A heck of a deal. So yeah, just something to think about. And I did my job well, whether people are watching or not. And nobody watched me. Even the black foreman said, I don't need to check on you, Mr. Nelson. He said, just watching you work makes me tired. I liked him. I didn't hate him. I think favoritism was shown to him. He was in one position, they put him the head over because he was friends with somebody of equal color. I mean, that crap goes on down there. Nobody wants to say anything about it, but it does go on. But anyways, because I know people watch and calling each other and, they don't have a life. Why don't you just start opening your eyes and believing the truth? It's your anniversary. I'll get over it. I do move on. I've been through a lot of stuff. not just this. So, happy Friday, everybody. And for those of you that are my faithful, my encouragers, pray for me. There is a satanic battle, and it goes on all around every one of us in our own spheres of influence. Pray for my protection, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And I think it's neat. People could come in last night and talk about their struggles, and we can pray. Some places are just a pit. You allow yourself to get sucked in it, it's really hard to climb out of it. So, thank you.